Throughout the year, more than 7,000 drivers took part in NiS Open competition. And tonight, they will look to cap things off with success. This is Phoenix Raceway, and this is the finale of the NiS schedule on iRacing. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's action here on RaceSpotTV for what's expected to be an intriguing race from the brand new version of Phoenix. 312 laps are on the docket for some of the biggest drivers involved with some of the biggest technical alliances across the service. My name's Justin Prince. Alongside me in the booth tonight is Lorenzo Bonder with our producer Tyler Maxson. Live timing and scoring is available for this evening's action as well at RaceSpot.tv/timing to keep up with your favorite teams and drivers throughout this evening's action. First things first, these drivers have been competing all throughout 2021 in official races across the iRacing service, and now it's the final weekend of NiS competition, also known as the NASCAR iRacing Series. Lorenzo, it all comes down to essentially a brand new layout for iRacers here at Phoenix.
Yeah, it's a brand new layout for everybody on the track. But it's funny. The only thing that people might say has moved is the start-finish line going from the main straight, what is now turn 3 and 4, which is the exit of the old turn number 1 and 2. But it does change a little bit the complexity of moving that start-finish line to over there. It does add a little bit of a strategy mix, which we're going to be talking about in this race, which I do like it. In the Vol layouts, this is my preferred layout.
And for historical purposes too, this will be one of the final opportunities for drivers in official action to be able to take part with the Generation 6 stock cars with the 750 horsepower low downforce package before things move over in the next few months or so to the next gen car, which will see 650 around its cap for horsepower at the low downforce tracks. Let's talk a little bit more about Phoenix Raceway. You mentioned the difference of the start and finish line location, Lorenzo. There were a couple little tweaks added as well in regards to some of the banking. Turn 1 is 8 degrees, but turn 2 rather is 8 to 9 degrees progressive. Some progressive banking, just a touch bit, was added in turns 3 and 4 as well, 10 to 11 degrees. And drivers described when it came to contender competition that the preferred line is likely going to be in 1 and 2 at least, the middle to top early on. It's going to be interesting how things adapt here, especially with how this track will race tonight.
Yeah, I was talking to Michael Conti, one of the NASCAR Coca-Cola drivers, and he was saying that the line really is going to be around 1, 2, maybe 3 for an overtaking opportunities depending on circumstances. There's going to be a really interesting groove because they're not just racing in the day, they're going to be racing day through night as well, and that does play a big difference in the tires, which we can talk about a whole lot during this race.
The drivers have already wrapped up qualifying. It's time to look at who will be driving in one of the final top split races for NiS Open of 2021. It was a fairly tight qualifying session tonight here on RaceSpotTV for NiS Open. Those drivers ended up being separated amongst the top 20 by 6/10. The first of those drivers tonight is a member of Lockdown Racing, one of the technical alliances, a part of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series' drivers rosters. It will be Jonathan Delaney, who will start on the pole alongside Gabriel Mercurio. Chris Wilhite, one of 3 drivers with more than 5,000 NiS Open points entering tonight, starts alongside Chad Sullivan, rounding up the top 6. Cabe McClenney looks to showcase what he can do alongside Bruno Pereira. In 7th position, Tyler Smith starts alongside Jonathan Osholm, with Patrick Moose representing Nexus Esports in 9th. Cameron Herbert rounds out the top 10, with the youngster Ty Ippolito in 11th position. He matched times with Lowline Racing's Jay Collins. 13th position sees Michael McLean represent is number 46 machine. From the 13th position, car 19 in I rating, with Matthew Martel in 14th. Kobe Wells starts in 15th, with Sam Devantier in 16th. Alan Wilson III starts in 17th, and ESC's Jason Main starts in 18th. Mark Paget starts 19th, and Jeff Barnes, the well-known NIS competitor, starts in 20th in the Cruxus car. Then 21st is Jack Bolchai, alongside Thursday afternoon's top split winner, Matt Cucker. Behind them is William Arnshaw for LaRue, with Jacob Klein in 24th. Rounding out the drivers who set qualifying times, Ethan Courtier will start 25th position. The well-known FTF competitor starts alongside the eNASCAR driver of Ryan Doucette. Rounding out the field, Maggie McGuire, Alan Bajari, Nick Nebben, Robert Miller rounds out the top 30. Moore Christopher 31st, with Jerry LePage 32nd. Joshua Grunman, John McNarma, along with Adam Benefield, the well-known eNASCAR crew chief. Rounding out 35 drivers, Heslinski did not make the start. Greg Edney rounds out the starters for the green. Drivers already have the pace car off for NIS Open action from Phoenix Raceway. It's Delaney and Mercurio in control of the field tonight. Who will come away with a big NIS victory? We're about to find out. The season finale from Phoenix is underway. From Arizona, and a great start for Delaney as expected with Lockdown Racing backing. The lead is already almost a full second. Right behind him though, majority of the drivers fighting side by side for about fourth on back. McClenny trying to hug the bottom. Chad Sullivan driving a Reaper Speed Lab machine running up on the top side.
Yeah, in the meanwhile, as we see now moving into the bottom line, there will be the number 5 right there, but it's going to be an interesting one how this race progresses right here, Justin's, because we're going to be seeing the apron being used for overtakes, but from what I've been hearing, the usage of the apron does add a little bit of an angle, and there's a second transition that you really don't want to be on further into the apron, so there will be a shorter, like a small usage of it just to make for the overtakes. Everything else will be used within the tri-oval banking part.
Yeah, some of the drivers for Contender Series competition with the NASCAR Xfinity Series cars, keep in mind Renzo too had mentioned after a couple laps, they were likely to stay away from that dog leg, in fact, compared to years past where it became an almost requirement to battle for position. But many of the drivers are already single file coming to the end of lap 4 this time, and it's going to be interesting how they handle the rhythm of today, especially with the track conditions starting off around pretty cool for the state of Arizona. In Avondale, Arizona, it's currently 87 degrees Fahrenheit, air temp 31 degrees Celsius, 37 degrees Celsius track temperature, that's 99 degrees Fahrenheit, but also fairly windy at 10 miles per hour, that's 16 kilometers per hour, facing the east.
Yeah, and that might throw a little bit of a wrench on the cars depending on how they are set up, right, Justin? Because it does add a little bit of a lightness into the car, especially during these transitions. As you see down in the apron, it will be the number 9 of Matt Kosher. You said that he won the Thursday split, and earlier favorite, as we have drivers already going to the pit box. Apparently, some troubles early on.
And an issue for Colby Wells. That's the car you see in the backdrop having a roll on in. He was running mid-pack, and that's also showing the importance of if you don't check everything with your setup, especially with this NIS part of the iRacing service being open, you can make mistakes if, say, you leave a qualifying trim in.
Yeah, and especially in a track that, because of the time and you are spinning in the pit lane, it's a long and very slow pit lane, so you can lose right about a lap or two even 2.25, depending on circumstances of your pit stop. So you really don't want to be dragged out early on.
So a good start for some of the drivers. A great start for the 14th highest driver iRating wise. That's a driver representing Denny Hamlin you just seen up the road, and Jack Bolche, who's up from 21st to 15th. There's also good battling right on behind him. Amongst these drivers, Jason Maines, who has finally found a hole to the bottom. He's fighting with Robert Miller of Nexus Esports to his high side. See also in that grouping as well, Jay Collins and several others trying to hold on to several different lines, whether the bottom or the top line, Lorenzo.
Yeah, using a little bit of the top line might give it an advantage maybe during the latter portion of the stint. From what I heard, within the first few laps of the setup, you're probably going to get the car being a little bit loose. You're going to have to manage the throttle. Going off for turn number 1 and 2, 3, and 4 is easier for you to do that as the driver using the apron right there. And then during the latter portion of the stint, mid-ladder, the car gets a little bit tighter. But before the pit stop, this is where it gets funky, because you can get the car, depending on how much you're using the tires, to be very loose and compromise your whole stint just in the blink of an eye.
An update, by the way, on one of the drivers who missed the start, and Stephen Haplinski. He ended up having to re-download just about everything on iRacing. He's now reporting over the radio. He had a technical issue, essentially, before tonight's action. That has now seen the 36 car 2 laps down. Meanwhile, up the road, some of the other battles heating up. Patrick Moose wants to try and charge his way on forward. McClenny is right up in front, as well as Tyler Smith. This grouping separated by just a few tenths. The next car already more than a second up.
And even though it's one of those tracks that you can see overtakes in plenty, especially during the latter portion of the stint, it is not the easiest place to overtake, as you're going to see still side by side. McLean on the inside. I use the apron right here to get the better run. And you can see that's the maximum usage they're going to be using, as I think there's another driver with issues going early in the pit lane.
That's Tyler Smith, who backed it down and has now dunked it down to the pit lane in his throwback to a Carl Edwards paint scheme, driving the Goose Machine tonight. So another driver with some issues early on. Meanwhile, Patrick Moose giving the squeeze to Jonathan Osholm. Going to make the move on the outside this time. And the reason, keep in mind, some of the drivers preferring that middle to top groove is they said there was more grip, a lot of them, on those higher 2 lanes compared to what they've seen in testing. Now, keep this in mind, though. Some drivers did find grip later on as the race went on in the Xfinity cars for Contender on Tuesday.
Yeah, but there's a little bit of a difference of driving the Xfinity cars and then the Cup cars, because the Xfinity, they have a little bit of more power, but they are heavier. Therefore, I think the middle, the line 1 and 2 might be the preferred lines on this one, whereas in the Cup cars, because they have that downforce to make up the weight, and they are slightly lighter than the Xfinity cars, you can make the transition smoother on the inside line and maybe in the middle during the middle to latter portions of the stint.
For those just tuning in, 16 laps now down this time by here on NiS Open for the season finale of the NASCAR Porsche special event action on the service. This is the final full-length weekend of racing for NIS competition. Currently, you're looking at a battle going on for 10th position. Ty Ippolito holding on, but Alan Wilson having to check up hard. Several cars starting about, several down to the dogleg now. That's Jack Bolche trying to dive his way underneath for position now as a result of all that checking up. A lot of chaos there.
And Nemshov trying to use the run on the inside to try to make that overtake, just cannot capitalize. Have to kind of block off the driver up above him and stay within the single line one more time. And that doesn't help. You just brush off the tires, even though you're getting good runs on lap after lap out of 3 and 4. But if you cannot capitalize that overtake early on, especially during that transition, you're going to be dead in the water pretty much quickly.
They've now gotten some breathing room. By the way, one of the cars who was amongst that pack a moment ago was the 13 Sam Devontier in the Speedy Snails machine just let by several cars due to an issue off that previous corner. As one of those drivers now in the pack you're seeing on screen, Matt Cucker, who continues to charge ahead, known for racing a lot. Let's put it that way, Lorenzo. Anything that has a steering wheel, you'll see Matt Cucker behind it. He is someone that races a lot in the span of day after day action. Keeping my eye on Cucker to see how he performs, as he spent also a fair amount of time trying to spend knowledge and learn knowledge of setups as well, of every type of car possible.
And one of the key tracks that you probably want to get your setup right is over here, because I think setup, I don't know how much you're going to agree with me on this. I think setup in a mile track like this, especially for long runs, is very important, right, Justin? Because even though you can get a really good run early on, make up that ground, especially if you're in the mid-pack, let's just say grab 3, 4, 5 spots. If you don't have a good mid-race to late race setup over here, and I mean in the stint overall, you're gonna be very, very bad in waters once the tire starts to brush off, gets a little bit of a wear, and we're still within the green flag runs that you probably want to have a yellow right in the middle.
Absolutely, when it comes to that setup, knowledge is so critical. Long run, to be able to know how to set up the car in a way that will not burn tires, but also can be good short run, and to have the knowledge to of the adjustments to be able to balance out any issues weight-wise, if you had to underfuel, etc. All that's so critical to be able to have the speed to charge away through packs such as this one. Or have the car that avoids bottoming out with how hard the cut is for something that dog leg.
And it is a very hard cut, because right now I think on this near asphalt, what happens, you have a little bit of a banking during the transition from the track to the apron that leads into the blue line, the first blue line of the dog leg. Then you have a second transition which goes nearly to the inside part of the wall. That's where you don't want to be, as we see Ryan Doucette try to catch up to the number 11 of M. Schaff and Bouillet. But that's the line you really don't want to take. And also going to the pit lane, that's another line you really don't want to be getting, because that easily bottoms out the car. And you can lose a few tenths of a second that will be precious for you, especially if you go to the pit lane under green flag.
By the way, the car you're seeing middle screen, the number 4, that's Ryan Doucette, one of the eNASCAR contenders from last year in the Coca-Cola iRacing series. He's so far picked up 11 positions, and the interesting thing I've noticed, and you've seen the last lap, he was one of the few drivers to try the apron line. That's become so intriguing to see off the restarts at Phoenix Raceway in the real world the past couple of years with this configuration.
Yeah, because I think up until the 2007s, where we had the first iteration of the track, you had no dogleg, right? You only had grass, so you would have to take more of a cautious approach and be safe within your runs, especially in the inside part, so you don't brush it off way too much. But now, with a dogleg, I think that addition of using maybe a third or fourth line brings a little bit of an excitement to this track.
Especially on those restarts. In the real world races, there have been times with the Cup Series where drivers have gone 5, 6 wide through what is now turns 1 and 2 before settling on down. Such an intriguing pattern turn, as well as keep in mind that pit entry. You see where that pit wall is, for example, much earlier now relative to the start and finish line. It's the same position as the previous configuration. However, it's a much longer run-up to, say, that start and finish line, and it can make that approach much more intriguing in turn.
It does, because the one thing there's 3 ways you can take that. The first is the very slow line. You just commit out of turn number 1, and on the entry of turn number 1, just stay on the inside line and just cruise it on the apron until the start of the pit lane. Second one, you turn midway through 1 and 2 and you slowly merge into the pit lane, which is the line I think some of the drivers might use. And the third line, which is the more risky one, is late entry into 2. Try to brake as hard as you can on the tires and use the kinetic force of the car and its braking to try to stop it in time. But from what I heard, you can only gain about a tenth or a few hundredths of a second in that. So you can make a whole lot of choices in here. Which is the best one? I would say number 2, out of my opinion.
Curious how a lot of those decisions will come into play tonight. You're looking at some of these air battles meanwhile. Amongst them is still one of the room machines running on the bottom groove, trying to find some grip. Armshoff currently having a quiet race of a +10, but is having to fight hard here on this long run, and this was something we talked about. The short run pace, if you are too aggressive on the short run pace setup wise, you can fall off as Doucette dives underneath with the dog leg.
Yeah, dived down on the dog leg. Well done by Doucette. Armshoff got a little bit spooked on the outside. Spoke a little bit on the radio about that, getting spooked, and now has to basically reset against Doucette, and looks like the 22 is in a little bit of a pickle as well out of 4.
Side by side still once more. Again, the numbers you see on the pylon are relative to the iRating these drivers have entering tonight. The SOF 4,060, that's the second highest out of the top split action so far this week at Phoenix for NiS Open. Miller for Nexus Esports not able to clear. Of note, Armshoff, as a result of all of that darting you've seen a lap or 2 ago, does have right rear damage. Now, when it comes to Phoenix, it's interesting how the damage can play out. Your opinion, Lorenzo, on the importance of aero damage tonight, especially, say, you have it on the splitter, or rather the spoiler.
It's going to be big, in my opinion, you know, because I think more on the splitter than anything else, because you want that, you don't really want to have that dirty air building up in the car and then adding up more heat into the car itself. So you want to try to be as clean as possible. On the fender though, on the back fender, it doesn't matter way too much. If you get damage on the wing though, there is another different story. It might be complicated for you to keep that car in check and getting some good runs, especially during the second portion of your stint. So it's going to be an interesting one how clean these drivers can manage. But we are 35 laps in, so everything is going smooth so far.
Very clean. By the way, the driver you see there in that matte black machine, the number 26 of Pereira, he had lost a couple positions just moments ago because he tried to dive underneath through turns 3 and 4 underneath McClenny and nearly looped it.
Oh.
He had to save it big time, Lorenzo. Let's put it that way, and that lost him 2 positions as a result from one major send to get to somebody's inside. And that's also the art of needing to balance how hard you go in the corner as well as how quick you are out.
Yeah, and also another thing is a tire race. This is kind of like a tire race of sorts, right, Justin? Because you want to get that conservation as better as you get, as much as you can. You want to be very, very smooth on the transitions to save that tire grip, especially during the second half. I've been mentioning that, so you can ease off from making the overtakes during the corners, right? As we see the 26 nearly looping it again.
That 26 is really charging the corners. Pereira trying to hold on for the time being as you take a look back towards the grouping that includes drivers like Miller, Armshoff, and company. Miller now weeble wobbles up the track. Robert Miller able to hold on for now as Birchie tried to dive underneath off the corner exit. These drivers are starting to get towards the limit when it comes to the grip. The track temp is going up a little bit, keep in mind, Lorenzo, as this race goes on. The instant time just past 1 p.m.
We're past 1 p.m. as our temperature is still within the 31 Celsius, but the track temperature is what matters. Is 39 degrees, so a 2-degree increase from what we last time covered it. That makes a difference on the tires. That kills the tire life bit by bit. And the one thing you really don't want to be doing, especially within 40 laps, is overdrive the car and then have a dreadful second half of the stint whenever you're starting to plan off your pit stops in about 10 to 20 laps?
More like 30 to 40. In fact,
right,
we're about midway through the stint. Expecting on fuel for tonight. Miller tries to utilize the bottom this time. Richie, after battling several laps, able to clear on by him. Miller nearly took a little bit too deep of a braking mark that time. Had to lift off the gas to avoid contact with the back bumper of the machine in front.
And that 7-car line that we're seeing right now, they're getting so close out of 3 and 4. It's a little bit spooky that it does look like that a yellow flag is about to come anytime soon. Yeah.
Back straight away. One car
Benefiel.
inside wall. Adam Benefiel of Team Conti has slammed the inside wall. He was the biggest mover before that mistake. No caution. We stay green.
That car still remaining in the apron is going to bring back to the pit lane. But looking at the car, doesn't look like it is in one piece, Justin. That car is going to have lengthy repairs.
Adam Benefiel had charged up to the field. All that progress goes bye-bye.
Yeah, gone immediately. And it sucks to see that, right, Justin? So a driver having such a really good performance, and it's not a mistake that a driver really wants to make. It does happen from time to time. And he was okay. It looked like the car was okay during its transition, but unfortunately it just skidded off way too much into the inside portion of the track.
He now becomes the second DNF. Bablinski had also pulled off after his technical issues earlier before the start of the race and turning a few laps. So now we're down to 34 cars running, no caution so far. Still looking at that battle going on for about 13th, 14th position. And how dominant, by the way, has the leader been? Well, Jonathan Delaney is currently nearly 7 seconds ahead, and he's already reached the back part of the field, for reference.
Yeah, and it's not surprising at all to see the leader kind of like this early on. We kind of expected this from Delaney because of the alliances the team has and how strong the setup is throughout the entire week. So him reaching the back markers this early on, some people might say it's surprising because despite being 45 laps in, but I would say normal stuff for the #1 car in this play.
Keep in mind, some of the drivers who have recently joined Lockdown's ranks, such as Delaney, such as Ralph Hutchinson, got the attention by running not just the official action, but some of the various leagues in open competition against some of the best of the best. Still looking, meanwhile, with that battle going on, involving Wilson, the third, getting a bit of a bump down the back straightaway this time. That number 14 overall iRacing driver trying to still make a move. It looks like Jack wants to go and then some.
Yeah, it does look like that. One thing we should be catching our eye on as well here, Justin, is look at P6 as well, like the number 18, Kate McClenny. I've been looking in his laps lately here, and he's been running worse than the guys right behind him. We have the yellow flag, yeah.
Trouble for Alan Pajari, the 15th overall iRacing driver. They're under caution for the first time tonight. Pajari had been driving one of the big gut cars, and the reason for the caution could be a frustrating one. He had been struggling in 34, had a major slide through 3 and 4. As he went to park the car in the dog leg, the rest of the pack passed by, and that was enough to trigger the caution flag.
A little bit of a weird one, don't you think?
Well, this is with iRacing. If you are close enough to a stop car, in this case, like he had in that dog leg, he went to a full stop, keep in mind, in this sequence. That will be enough to trigger a caution if you are within 3 or 4 car lengths or so.
Oh, and the engine just decided to fully blow up.
So that explains that too, with the Dynamic Autosports machine, with the blow motor, with the longer pit lane delta, you can't roll your way back, so that means Pajari likely done for this race. Pit stops for the first time tonight are now underway. Approaching the start of lap 49 at the flag stand. Delaney and company leading them on down. Expecting 4 tires and fuel to be the name of the game here as Delaney misses the pit box on the first stop.
Yeah, and he's about a second a little bit later than everybody else, so he's going to lose a relatively 1 second to everybody. There's a good chance he might still retain the lead, but it's not going to look like it because Gabriel Mauricio actually jumped him on the exit of the pit lane.
So that mistake cost him a few seconds in the lane, about 2 total. And now, for the first time tonight, a new leader, Gabriel Mauricio, who leads in his essentially 04 machine with the number theme of that of Chip Ganassi Racing. It's early days. And keep in mind, one of the intriguing storylines to get to talk about a little bit with NASCAR Cup Series action. Last race essentially for Chip Ganassi Racing at that level, with their assets going to Trackhouse Racing at the conclusion of the weekend essentially for the new year.
Yeah, I remember about these news. If I recall correctly, Ganassi interested in more IndyCar and then some sports car racing than anything else, if I recall correctly, yeah.
Keep in mind, when it comes to Trackhouse now, they will expand to a 2-car operation in turn. That will be an intriguing campaign with some of the success they've had with Daniel Suarez with the 99. So having Ross Chastain on this roster listings. A couple drivers having extended damage repairs, by the way, this caution. Mark Christopher's had to come back down. Ethan Coulter has come down again for service. Sean McMara also having to come on down. You also see one of the lap down cars, and Tyler Smith, who had his issue earlier, electing not to take the wave, instead elected to come down for service. The tire wear numbers, by the way, being reported throughout the field, staggeringly different. Some are reporting tire wear in the 80s still, others to the low 70s, high 60s, Renzo.
Yeah, I would not consider this very surprising numbers, to be very honest. I would say it's right around the ballpark. It depends on how you drive the car. Like I said, this is a track that you have to be very smooth on the transitions and overdrive the car, especially at that point of the center during the half. You could get up to down to maybe 70% on how aggressive you're driving it, and being at 70%, 45, 46 laps in is the one thing you really don't want to have.
So, still getting things ready to go. When to go already on that pace car. It's Isio who's leading. Delaney Wilhite, who's quietly been running third all race, is in P3. Moose up 5 spots, is in 4th. McClenny doing a very impressive job with his machine to hold on to the top 5 for now. Matt Tucker from 22nd to 6th. Once again, doing stellar work, charged with the pack. Urslam, Herrera, Doucette, Ippolito, the top 10. Green flag is out, back to racing. Had a good start this time from Mauricio, holding on at the front of the field. Question is, how long will it take for drivers like Delaney to look to pounce? Behind them, McClenny trying to pounce at the bottom line for 4th position. He gets the run as the battle for the lead is on. Delaney to the inside for the lead, and Mauricio quickly gives it to him. No challenge for Delaney and his Ford Mustang. Mauricio now having to fight off several cars as a result, though. Mauricio now having Patrick Moose underneath makes the move. McClenny the next one on the bottom. Still side by side, a few rows back throughout all this. Oshalom is now battling for 7th with Pereira. Those drivers have gone single file as things look to settle back down for now, but Nexus Esports is now up inside the top 2 with Patrick Moose. And as you can see, a few drivers sticking to the bottom right now. Matt Tucker in particular seems to be one of the better ones, getting that line to work to try and make a pounce now on Chris Wilhite.
Interesting to see Wilhite doing an NIS race. Normally he's a guy that we see him doing IndyCar racing, especially in the Open Series. Very good oval driver with the IR18s, but trying a shot and being very successful at the current moments. The P5 and the number 5 car in the split.
Wilhite 3rd overall in the standings this season. But tonight looks to try and clinch a top 3 in NiS Open official in Division 1 standings. Garrett Maines entered the weekend with that points lead by more than 400 over Justin Levine. Keep in mind, Garrett Maines has that points lead despite having 2 less weeks recorded on the schedule. Keep in mind, for NiS, there are 5 drop weeks throughout the season.
Yeah, because you're trying to emulate the entire NASCAR season, so it is a little bit natural to have more weeks than normal. iRacing gives you 4 weeks, 4 drop weeks during the 12-week period per season, because this is actually annual league. You have the 5 drop week races, so basically 1 per season and plus an extra one depending on circumstances. So it's an interesting format to run with, and even that the real life doesn't have that, I think, if I recall correctly, it's still a very important race that you have to make every single ground up, no matter what.
Exactly. Looking at Ryan Doucette, meanwhile, he's having a bit of a frustrating battle now with Bruno Pereira. He's trying diving underneath, low side, high side. The NASCAR driver getting held up, all while Robert Miller, his technical alliance mate, trying to fend off more drivers in the battle going on for 12.
Oof. There's a little bit of a struggle right there for Wilson still on the inside. But let's see what he's going to be able to do. The 33 gets really close, has to check up Herbert. We'll go to the top line and try to get another good run on that number 28 car.
Cameron Herbert trying to move up to the middle line now with the dive from Amshoft in the Roux machine. That's again the battle for 14th. But not able to clear on by this time as McGuire forced to check up a little bit. Still goes for the send this time to the high side. Maggie McGuire looking to try and take advantage of all of this, and that's the intriguing part of this too. Is preferred line seems to be bottom in 3 and 4, but middle to top 1 and 2, which can cause the very difficult task of passing the car.
Yeah, it's those different grooves, and it's a groove that Phoenix is very known for. If you manage your tires, especially at the middle line, that's probably some issues with Saint-Aventier, and we're going to have another yellow flag.
Trouble. And it's around 18th on back. Several cars still scrambling about mid-pack. We're under caution for the second time tonight. It was Sam Devantier who was amongst those in the first part of Carnage as a result of, wow. That's Mark Padgett who went up the track.
Yeah, it's a weird one to catch. I'm just looking through Saint-Aventier's point of view, because apparently the number he spun the 10 car out, and the 10 just came back on the track and hit him on the outside of the track, and caused a little bit of confusion when the 10 came back into the track.
Bit of frustration, you can say, too, as well in that sequence. 250 laps to go now. It's pit stop time again. The tire limit for tonight, 8 in the box, 9 total. So several of these drivers electing already burned 2 of them early. One who has not elected to pit, Nick Nebben in the 17 has just stayed out. Everybody else so far is down. In fact, all the lead lap cars have pit.
Yeah, it's that strategy going on. We're starting to see the different strategies moving forward. So this is what I like about this long dangerous race, because it is a dangerous race nevertheless. It's these races where strategy early on can be a crucial factor while everybody else is pitting. So Nebben obviously might go pit this time by, if he does indeed go to pit just because he wants to get an extra lap of fuel and tires than everybody else, would be a very interesting strategy. But hey, It's early on, so they can do whatever they want. The key point is, though, I think by the final maybe 50 or 60 laps, you probably want to have at least 2 sets of tires to use so you can get that grip to fight towards the top spots if you are within those maybe top 10, top 15 positions.
So there goes Nick Nebben coming down to pit. As you were describing there, one driver did miss their pit stall as well, and Matthew Martell. They've also had to roll into the pit lane. Keep in mind that car you've seen in the number 17 for the Operation Sports Colors, also known for being a YouTuber and streamer on the platform. Several different types of cars. Nebben now cycle towards the back. In fact, having a very lengthy pit stop is Nick Nebben as a result there. So again, nobody officially now in that regard. Lorenzo surprisingly has stayed out here. Everybody has already used their first 2 sets, not even before lap 70.
Yeah, only Carter and Christopher actually stayed out on track deal, and Colby Wells as well. So they're back markers, so they're trying to do their best and might get away around here once the pace car actually flashes their light and it turns it off. So it's going to be an interesting one. Now they're not within back lead lap, and Delaney now back into the race lead. How he will fare against Moose and Mauricio, who look very aggressive cars early on.
I'm more so interested in how the comparison will be with Patrick Moose, maybe even Matt Cucker you can throw into the conversation for those first few rows.
Yeah, because I think that's the first time in this race that we see Cucker feature within the top 5.
So again, the top 10 here will be Delaney, Moose, Mauricio, McClenny, Cucker, Bushlam, Wilhite, Doucette, Pereira, Ippolito. Keep in mind that it was discussed with the Contender Series action where pace car is now off. The trigger point can be anywhere on iRacing from this point all the way to the restart box for the green flag trigger. And so far, Delaney and Mauricio have both elected to wait until the exit of turns 3 and 4 to restart the pack.
Which I think is the smarter move, right? You really don't want to be going hard racing into turn number 3 and 4 right off the bat and maybe cause some confusion.
Off and away we go. Great launch for Jonathan Delaney once more. Side by side, starts for second. Moose nearly hits the outside wall. He sends it so hard, Matt Cucker checks up the pack.
He checks up basically everybody. McClenny has to check up a little bit. Wilhite was a little bit behind, and Ashalim was in the inside lane, so he hadn't much to do about it. But that got a little bit feisty going to the second restart of this race, as now Doucette moves up in the inside and goes up to P6.
Ryan Doucette wants to show he has places to be, and he wants to be at the front. Up 20 spots, he's up inside the top 6 now. So Ryan Doucette with his signature Zoop House plates machine. Now continuing to progress upwards, and now the true point is going to be how the long run pace fares out for drivers like Doucette, Moose and company. To Delaney. Remember, Delaney had pulled away from Mauricio by more than 6 seconds before the first caution of the race.
Yeah, now gap is separated between Delaney and Moose is right about 0.4 of seconds. It's increasing by corner by like half a cent of a not half a cent, but a half a hundred of a second by the corner. So Moose is actually keeping Delaney very honest in this restart, like Mauricio did with the other drivers that were behind him when he was the leader during the first restart.
Playing restarts for some. Still though, Ryan Doucette, remember we mentioned he was up to 6? Well, he wasn't able to fully clear on by the 7, Lorenzo. Guess what? If you can't clear, it takes a lot of patience to pass. Doucette is now getting passed along the outside on the right side of your screen. You see the 26 of Pereira under attack from Robert Miller and company now.
Yeah, and also in the back, I just saw, I think, Jerry LePage having a little bit of an issue because he jumped right about 3 or 4 spots back from Pereira, trying to go on a little bit of a early surge during this restart to claw up a few spots and move up a few places.
Set now side by side with Chris Woheit still. Woheit giving a bit of space to Doucette. Continuing to clip that apron a little bit in these side-by-side battles. Tries the dog leg again to try and clear. Yet again, though, dead even, side-by-side still. And how frustrating is this as a driver knowing you've got a quick car? But with Phoenix, this is a tough track to pass. Speaking of drivers, they'll have to pass an incident. Caution is out again. This time it's Jeff Barnes who goes around. A 24th overall iRacing driver in tonight's race. It's sent through the corner in 1-2 by Chad Sullivan for the next caution.
Yes, Sullivan's car just went way too high during transition from 1 to 2 and got into Barnes' line. That was right on line number 3. Unfortunately, tagged him, hit the wall in the back, and that's why it triggered yellow flag number 3.
And there goes the back and forth, and it looks like everybody else is saying, you know what? We've already used 2 sets, we ran 10 laps. Majority of the field electing to stay out as expected here with the 3rd caution of the race. And the bright side, though, for the drivers who took the wave around, they can now take their 2nd set of the race overall.
Yep.
For a majority of them.
It's gonna be... just listening to the banter of Matt Coker and Cocker and talking about the popularity of iRacing nowadays.
Yeah, the popularity of iRacing is definitely skyrocketed when it comes to the amount of drivers approaching the service, etc. It's incredible, to say the very least, the growth over the past couple years now, to say the very least.
Yeah, it's funny when we talk about this, it's one of those things. 2020, I think, might have been even though it was a bad year because of the COVID, as the wave around, just trying to see who was that was flying, that was Kobe Wells. It's insane. I think they had the biggest spike in subscribers and drivers coming into the sim, and it's going to be very, very interesting what the next few years bring. It might not bring the same amount of drivers that it did in 2020, but I think we found a steady climb that lots of drivers that might appreciate it.
It's been intriguing how it all plays out, especially keep in mind some of the people who will join iRacing too these days. You have, for example, speaking with an MLB pitcher from the Oakland Athletics for a podcast interview today, who had just essentially joined iRacing at the end of last year, had his teammates race around a bit, and now is starting to take it seriously too. So there's all sorts of intriguingness when it comes to, and competitiveness too, seen from a lot of the newcomers coming aboard. These drivers, meanwhile, getting ready to reach the 1-to-go signal, expected this time by Delaney. Still leads over Moose, Mauricio, Cocker, and McClenny. Your biggest mover, Robert Miller, is now up 19 spots for Renzo.
Yeah, and that's where the strategy is key over here in this track. If you know what you're doing, if you're picking the spots at the right time and at the right time at the right place, you can get up so easily and claw up that field and be within contention. So it's gonna be an interesting one, how the race develops for these guys that are climbing up top. I'm not gonna say they can contend all the entire time for the win, but that climb is what makes, I think, NASCAR, probably more than anything else in the oval side, the more interesting as a part of racing, because of that strategy can make it break it everything.
Getting ready for the restart. And now we're getting to the late caution and delayed restart. A driver had stopped on the racetrack, it appears, and that will now mean we will have to wait for the pace car one more time. It was Sam Devontier, who had slowed down, and that was enough to trigger a delayed green. So we'll try this once again here for this restart. Get back underway with about 234 laps to go.
Yeah.
Who's caught your eye the most tonight so far, Renzo? Outside Delaney.
I would say, let me just grab it over here. I'm probably going to say Cocker. Is one of those guys. Yeah. Ippolito and also Bouye because he started P21. But one guy I think we should be looking for, and I'm quite impressed because, like Wilhide, is Jonathan Oshlev. Jonathan is a very well-known driver within the Indies, and he's doing really well over here. He started the 8th and now in P6 as we're going to go into our third restart of this race.
Coming to the start of lap 79 this time, Jonathan Delaney has led just about all of them so far from Phoenix. Restart all set to go to the Geico restart zone. Green flag back up in the air. Narrow lane launch for Jonathan Delaney. In front of the rest of the pack, the first side-by-side still for second. Will Matt Moose be able to avoid the wall this time? Yes, he does. A little bit lower line for Moose. Squeezes on down. He's currently in second.
And Mauricio trying to find that line on the inside, just cannot get a good run on Moose, and that brings back Cocker now into the outside, but Mauricio is going to use the apron and the dog leg, as obviously he needs to get a really good run, but let's see what he's going to be able to do out of turn number 1 and 2. Is he going to get a really good run? But that is that patient thing you were talking about. If you stay on the inside, and he did not make those overtakes every single time.
Caution is out yet again, mid-pack around 20th this time. Joshua Grundman is not happy. He was battling for 19th. He and Jerry LePage crashed hard into turn 3.
It does sound a little bit weird because LePage was staying on the top line, try to move into basically the 32's lane. We're going to be looking on the replay shortly. And you're going to see the contact happening as now we're going to look in. What happened to LePage? You're going to see LePage right on the wall, moves the inside lane, gets the 32, goes, crashes around, and grabs another driver as an additional contact. 2 more drivers at additional contact.
Several, in fact. Jason Maines getting significant contact. He was the ESE car right there for LA Salary Sports. Then Barnes gets involved. Maines flipping upside down from his velocity of contact. Under caution yet again amongst those having to come down. Barnes, Paget, Klein, Nebben, Edney, LePage, and Grunman, along with Maines for obvious reasons. And this is the tough part when it comes to Phoenix, the attrition portion of the race. This has been a track in the past known for cautions, precautions, 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 precautions. But in recent years, that has settled down. That's picking up a little bit here in this race.
It is. Those restarts are a little bit tricky to handle, as Deventier now is the lucky dog. He's going to get his lap back. But I think it is the nature of the track because it is a 1-mile track. It does bring a little bit of a pack racing of sorts, so you have to navigate your lines properly and avoid making contact with the cars, especially in transition out of the corners out of 2 and 4. Even though 4 makes it easier for you to use a dog leg in corner number 2, you basically have the start-finish line, the old start-finish line for usage. So that attrition, I think that is what bringing more the caution out of the drivers and try to negotiate your spacing awareness than anything else. But it's one of those tracks, man. That's what I have to say. You have to be ready every single time.
I agree with you on that one. Remember some of the big incidents, too, when it came to the order configuration where what is now the back straightaway, with the way the walls are structured, too, it can work like a funnel.
Yeah.
Where if someone gets loose and hits the inside wall, better get ready to dodge if you're along the outside. Either way, Fourth caution of the night, that ties the top split total from Thursday afternoon's race that Cucker won. The highest top split total so far is 9. It's Delaney, Moose, Cucker now the top 3. Ryan Doucette is back up to 7th as a result of the caution. Miller's just on the cusp of the top 10. Some surprising performances, though, I will say, for some. Jake Collins, minus 10 so far. Chad Sullivan, who was involved in the previous Yellow Renzo, minus 19.
Yeah, and it's part of that hard racing that sometimes does happen and you get bumped out in the track. But of course, it's still early on. We're barely into the 1/4. We are going to pass the 1/3 of this race already, but that 2/3 is where things, I think, pick up a little bit and makes it this strategy battle much more interesting to cover as we're going to go green more and more time.
They have the long restart box here on iRacing. Cucker getting ready, second row inside, but it's Delaney's call to go. Boost to the outside. iRacing pace car making its way to its stall, while Delaney makes its way towards Barney's stall. Green flag is up, back to racing from Phoenix. And a clean start for Delaney once more. Everyone just dodging the blue cone to the inside. Moose trying to run the outside line in the battle for second. Cucker looking to move up to P2.
And he sealed the deal, though, because he just couldn't get outside of turn number 1 too early. And now on the outside lane is Gabriel Mauricio with a little bit trying to get the resurgence on this third restart of this race. Doesn't use the ape or the dog leg. But I think one thing we haven't talked about here, Justin, which is very essential, is that dirty air, right? That you need,
yes.
you want to have as much clean air as possible, especially out of turn number 1 and 2, where you have that progressive banking, and that progressive banking can throw you offside pretty much quickly. So you want to have a little bit of an offset to the left side of the car for you to get that clean air as best as you can and get those good runs. But because it is so convoluted, it's so hard to be within a good relative clean air out of the other driver.
That's a great point to bring up, because this is one of those tracks where, despite being a 1 mile distance circuit, if you get stuck in dirty air, it can take several laps to try and find a way to break through it. And that's where you see a lot of the fanning of the lines come in and so forth. It's such a difficult track in turn with that dirty air, making things very difficult in turn. That can cause that trouble to move on forward, as Mauricio is now stuck in the bottom.
Yeah, and he's going to be stuck for the bottom for a really, really long time already. He lost the position to Jonathan Oshlim, so Oshlim back, not back into P5, but finally breaking into the top 5 for the IndyCar competitor, as now Doucette as well moves up into the top 6. So the Ian Astro Coca-Cola driver, so having a good surge into this start of the second third of the race.
Looking meanwhile at some of the other battles, Armjoff you've been seeing throughout all this, having to fight very hard, getting attacked from the inside, trying to attack Doucette inside as well. Behind him, that is McLean trying to make the move now. Again, McLean has been one of the few actively using the dog leg almost every lap. McLean having to lean on the right rear tire this time to the inside group. Alan Wilson the third feeding dirty air to Armjoff. Armjoff as nearly he comes towards the wall.
And you really don't want to be nudging the wall this early on, because if you get that nudge, it's basically throwing your car offside. And the one thing you really don't want to have is splitter damage. Not splitter damage, but damage on the side, which basically drags about, I would say, 2-3 kilometers per hour, and that 2-3 kilometers per hour eventually accrues to something even bigger than that, and you lose performance, especially in the turn-ins.
Right now you see Hamshop struggling a little bit with that turn, and remember, has contact to the right rear already, has a little bit of right front fender damage now too. 11 machine stuck on the high side here. McLean trying to get the bottom to work. Amongst those charging through, remember the issue from Tyler D. Smith earlier? Guess who's the next car behind him? Tyler D. Smith. Meanwhile, you look back at Doucette's battle for 5th or so.
And he's going to get an opportunity, depending on circumstances, over here on McLean, if he stays on that outside line. But everybody else just trying to stick it in as Doucette tried to look on the inside of Auchelin, but Auchelin holds very well that middle high lane out of turn number 2, but nearly, and I mean nearly, just a few millimeters away of scratching that wall.
And that comes down to a lot of the preparation that has to come into play for a lot of the eNASCAR drivers too. Thousands upon thousands of laps for every track that's on the schedule. And that doesn't include, say, the organizations who run a lot of official racing, who have to spend 1,000+ laps minimum to be able to find the right balance for a setup. Those who may be affiliated to a setup affiliation of sorts. Yep. It takes a lot of work to be able to prepare that for not just yourself, but your teammates, and potentially those you may be racing against who may not have the same connections.
Yeah, I have a few teammates that run some Brazilian leagues and some of the these top splits in the A fixed or the A Open, even the NiS as well. I think they did get us a few runs in. You said thousands. Thousands is minimal. I think some of these drivers get about 2,000-3,000 laps, depending on circumstances. There was a page, I think, from, I'm trying to remember who the driver was, that was about 3,500 laps, depending on circumstances, for you to get a really, really good idea what you got to do in the race, because you're simulating basically everything.
When iRacing, every 100th of a second you can find per lap adds up, to say the least. By the way, a couple more drivers with issues. One has parked at Kobe Wells. Another has come back on the racetrack. Jason Maines, who flipped over under one of the previous cautions. Maines is running without a front bumper throughout all of this. Side by side now, you see on the left side, Doucette still trying to find a way to get up to his highest spot of the race in 5th. Meanwhile, one car spins on the right side. Under caution for the 5th time tonight, and this time it is Amshoff who gets spun around in the 11.
Yeah, apparently a little bit of an issue between Amshoff and the number 19 car, McLean, out of turn number 3. They made contact during the turn-in of the track, and the number 11 gets spun around, as you see now on the replay.
See the miss on the bottom, and hard into the wall goes the LaRue machine. Significant left front damage now, and left rear damage. Every corner of the car is now damaged there. With the runs lasting about 35 laps, we may see drivers have to think a little bit about this tire set situation. How many coming this time? With 2:13 to go, Delaney thought about it. He nearly juked himself into the wall.
All right, a little bit of a fake that nearly didn't work into a fake, and that would have been a trip to the wall, but Delaney just manages to keep it in. Tyler Smith is staying out, so the number 20 will lead one lap over here, and as he might going for that ladder strategy of, you know, just get another additional lap and then come to the pit lane and work from himself from the back again.
And an hour pit issue for Delaney. This time he pit too short of his lollipop man. So now he had to pull up. That could cost him a little bit of time. See if that ends up causing a difference for the race on pit road. Moose has already completed his service. Yes, it will. How about the whole gang arriving? Moose and Cucker passed by the cone.
Insane. And he nearly got overtaken by Doucette as well. I think if he had taken, I would say maybe half a second longer, try to realize that he was a little bit early, he would have lost also the position to Doucette and maybe McClenny over here as well, because they were so close to one another.
So a very tight race sees third off the lane for Delaney. Tyler Smith did stay out this time, and now it gets interesting. It's been a yo-yo type race for Smith. Keep in mind, Lorenzo, he was one of the drivers who had to pull in during green flag action, keep in mind. lost about a lap plus, and now is leading despite all that trouble, albeit with the strategy difference here.
Yeah, some could say that that last two hero strategy is working out a little bit, isn't it, Justin?
It's gonna be very nerve-wracking, let's put it that way, for some of the drivers, I will say, coming up here. Potential tire spin could be high, as well as the potential of what could happen in turns 1 and 2.
Yeah, now that we finally get a driver that is 34 or 33 laps in with those tires, what does happen to him? You know, how hard does he fight going to turn number 1 and 2? Because now you can see on the left hand side of the screen the tire stints. Everybody, and I mean literally everybody on the track, bar Tyler Smith, actually gone into the pit lane.
And when you mean it, you mean every single person who is out of their pit box right now, except for that 20, has taken tires.
Yeah.
Including the lap down cars. The only drivers who have not taken tires are the ones getting massive repairs done. So, as some of the drivers decide to throw the blue cone into the safety barriers, it's time to get ready for a restart with Tyler Smith in control of the field. Past lap 100, 210 to go. And are you ready to play some Duck Duck Goose for who will lead out of turn 2? We're about to see. Long time to think about how to launch this one. Several already darting out towards the inside. Smith starting to pick up the tempo already for turn 3. Heading off to the restart zone here. Smith waiting all the way for the green flag trigger. Green flag's out, we're back to racing at Phoenix. And a good launch for Smith. What happens though in turn 1? Matt Cucker, the first of the drivers on fresh tires. Smith elects to go high. Delaney goes low. Smith with several cars trying to dart around us.
Oh!
Cucker forced to check up. Everyone scrambles as Cucker drops back to the end of the top 10.
Jesus Christ. I think even Oshalim as well got a little bit entangled with that. Has dropped out of the top 10, but is pandemonium. He's still into the top 5, Smith. But can he keep it like that going forward with that kind of tire, racing hard against everybody? I don't think so. He's a sitting duck.
Well, it's a goose, actually. He's a sitting goose. Matt Cucker is too. There goes Goose to make rewind. Cucker, rather, as the Goose car now drops all the way outside the top 10.
Well, as long as he doesn't get lapped, it might be a really good strategy for him, because in terms of tires, if it just plays out during the race, because as now we open up officially the second third of the race, we are past lap 104, now into 106. Those guys that have like one tire left, maybe with 60 to go, he might have 2. It could work wonders for him if he has the pace to back it up, of course. And would get a better grip situation than everybody else, depending on circumstances.
Matt Cucker, by the way, lost 6 spots from all of that. Smith, he's not making too many friends. He's trying to make everybody work for this Lorenzo. He's being taken 2 to 3 wide some of these corners, and others are having to check up hard when he takes that top line in 1 and 2. This time, it's 3 wide through the dog leg again. Wilson the third, the middle line. Martel backing off this time to go back 2 wide as there's near contact behind. Barnes and more Christopher nearly banged doors from that.
And nearly banged doors from that, and that's restart. I think it is the most one that is the one that has the most attrition after all of all drivers. As Smith's still dropping back positions, dropping like a rock. Now going to P18, might lose P19 to Moore Christopher, and he did Will. In the meanwhile, Delaney have to fend off Doucette, who's looking really strong on this restart.
And if you're drivers like Mois or Novak, you are watching with intriguingness to see how Delaney handles this. Ryan Doucette, highest he's been of the night now is 2nd. How will Doucette try and fare out? He elects to go to the bottom this time. Delaney preferring that middle line for the grip levels so far. Moose also close behind, 3/10 back.
And how hard will Delaney fight for that middle line, right? And how Doucette will try to negotiate that overtake to clinch the lead in this race. It's going to be an interesting one.
Passed by Maines once again with traffic, who remains to the bottom of the racetrack. Doucette now bring Moose to that same line. The top three now starting to run away from McClenny and company. And it looks like the patience game is now starting to come into play with the effect of dirty air. Separation last time, 7/1,000 of a second. Through lap times this time. Drivers running 27.2, separated by a couple 100ths.
Yeah, and it started to form up a little bit of a train of, I'm just taking a look over here, 8 cars, if we're counting Ashlim to be the first car with the last car in that 8-car train. But Boudier and Ippolito not far behind, even though the gap between Ashlim and Boudier is right about 4/10 of a second, and between Boudier and Ippolito is about also 4/10 of a second to 5.5 a second.
Still difficult for Doucette to round that bottom line. The top 7 or so, make it top 8, are now closing back up again. Give a shout out to that driver 9th, by the way, and Jack Perci once again up 12 positions to 9th, leads the second pack over Ippolito. Indications now from McClenny that he will give space to Mauricio in the battle on behind. You see Mauricio now gaining 1 position throughout all of that as well. A lot of give and take with these early stages, keep in mind, when it comes to some of the NiS action you will see across the service.
Good to see that happening. And you'd see some work, teamwork right there. Just trying to find a driver that you can work with. And McClenny just saw maybe that Mauricio might have been the faster driver, a little bit more aggressive. But also faster can make up some ground, and who knows, working them to get even closer to Moose, because Moose is dropping back.
Taking a look now at Miller. And Miller nearly getting hit from Matt Cucker. And I will say this, I'm curious how Matt Cucker handles losing all those spots after being stuck behind a driver with older tires, because he is known for trying aggression or having aggression in this type of a situation in the past. One car, by the way, has just blown up. Michael McLean has managed to pop the motor.
It's a second car or third car in this race that blows the engine. So what can it be attributed to here, Justin? Would you say tape?
Has to be tape. You have to think it's tape, because it's not just the oil temp, but also the pressure for the water gauge as well as the water temperature. You don't get that right number of tape or run too high in the red for, say, you can go as high as about 289 in some cases before blowing up. But if you run too long in that red range too, you can also blow it up.
Fair point. I'm just trying to look over here how much tape I have on my setup, but I did not seem to find that. But from what I heard, a good tape setup might be right about, I think, 62 or something like that percent. That
sounds about the decent mark. I'll keep in mind with these cars, this is a massively different way of approach to compared to a couple of years ago, with some of the progression of the setup knowledge, but also how these cars are built and how they run in general. A few years ago, you may see a track like Phoenix 30% some cases, maybe 40% tape. Now a lot try and maximize that RPM and aerodynamics by going as high as they can up to the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, and from what I heard, that 60 might be good because you're going to be under constant draft as well, and McClenny giving room to Robert Miller, so the 22 will go by and get within the top 5 for the first time in this race.
I will say this is one of the first times I've personally seen McClenny here on NiS competition, and from what I've seen so far, he might be impressing a couple people with how he's performed. He's given a lot of decent space, but he's also got good pace in the car to compete with some decent drivers here.
Yeah, he's running really well so far in this race, you know, just keeping within the context of everybody
Caution.
else. Another caution.
19th position this time. And it's Jeff Barnes who again has a problem, and this time it was the exit of turn 4. Several cars got loose in one corner, and when one gets loose and a second gets loose, and the second car is close enough to your back bumper, you may get yourself spun around completely to finish the job.
Yeah, and the one who did the spinning on Barnes was actually Jake Collins, but it wasn't intentional, of course. He was the first car that made the contact, so is that collateral damage that you really don't want to be involved in? As we look at the replay now, Barnes is going to see the car spinning. There you go, gets loose, and there's Collins on the inside, and nothing the 29 could do right there, as we have a busy pit lane here, Justin.
Yet again, pit stop time comes into play. These drivers ran about 20 plus laps on their tires. And now it gets really interesting because we're towards the point where some of these teams have burnt up nearly half their tire allotment before the halfway mark, Lorenzo. Yeah. If you get a long green flag run, you'll be okay. But if we keep on seeing the pattern of 20, 30 laps, it could get concerning at the end.
It can get very concerning at the end because what are you going to have about, let's just say, one set remaining in the binning circumstances, 0 sets. So it's an interesting one, but I think I like even more. I think that was the call of the set of going for the 2 tires.
Took 4. He took 4.
Took 4. Oh, okay.
But he did have one of the quickest deltas. Yeah, another mistake I think for Delaney.
Yeah, what I saw from Delaney is that he had a little bit of a movement inside the pit stall, so he had to do a very, very marginal adjustment. I think he's saying first pit box is. I'm not gonna say. I don't know if I should say the last word, but yeah, he doesn't like the first pit box.
It is a very big pit box. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And that's one of the main things too when it comes to learning a different type of configurations, not just the track itself, but also the configuration of how the pit boxes function, with where the stop markers will be, where your pit crew will actually pit you. All that is stuff you have to figure out as time goes on, whether through racing or testing.
Especially, I think those frontal ones, maybe within the top 10. And I would say a little bit back to the top 10, like P7, 8, or 9, because you're within that off angle and you don't know what the right angle is. So I do feel the pain of Delaney right here.
So Delaney came off the lane 3rd, Moose in 2nd. Ryan Doucette, though, is leading for the first time tonight. Doucette led his first lap at the stripe. Delaney 115 tonight. Patrick Moose still looking for his first lap led. The other drivers to lead, Smith and Mauricio this evening. Expecting the signal fairly soon here, with several wave rounds coming up this time. Grunman, Bajari, Klein, LePage, Maines, all taking waves. Here's the interesting mark, by the way, to think about. There are drivers who have just over the radio indicated they may be nervous about trying the same strategy as Smith just did because Smith became the case study for it.
Yeah, I would not be surprised. And the one thing that they probably can try, and it probably would fail miserably, given the status of the tires, might run the inside line, like the 1 and 2, out of 1 and 2, and see how bad the car skids off, as we're going to go into restart number 4.
If you want to be that person, good luck.
Yeah,
these drivers do not want to be. Yes. Do not do an official race. 188 to go, meanwhile. We're back to racing with Ryan Doucette, leading them to the green this time. Delaney nearly hit the inside wall, trying to cut through the dogleg this time. Delaney trying to dive. 2x2, several rows deep through turns 1 and 2.
Oh, looks like the Moose made a little bit of a contact in the outside wall out of the turn number 2. Don't know how much damage the number 6 car has, but it did grind slightly the wall when it came out of 2.
He had a small scrape prior to that moment. No additional damage appears to the fender. Behind them, Mauricio is back up to 4th, while Oshalom trying to hold on to a side-by-side behind them as these drivers try and sort themselves out. The 7 holds on to 5th now.
Not too many changes looks like it in the track so far. I think the biggest one, if we can call it the biggest one, might be the attempt of Maggie McGuire inside Chris Bullhide on the inside of turn number 2.
Wire, known for some decent speed in the past, keep in mind, in NiS competition. Mauricio having to take a higher line through 3 and 4 this time. We'll say, for Fulci trying to channel his inner Denny Hamlin. Months, the top 6, the highest he's been so far tonight. So Delaney curling into a rhythm here in this battle for second. Patrick Moose disrupting that rhythm, trying to get towards the quarter panel. Delaney now being under attack from his fellow number 6 car.
And what that does bring Mauricio, as Delaney's car gets a little bit loose outside of turn number 4, they'll bring Mauricio into the inside lane, but for now, as Mauricio's now car gets a little bit loose on the entry out of 1 and 2, might lose a little bit of a tire life for that, but still within the relative draft distance of both cars ahead of him.
That's exactly what I think Doucette may want to see Lorenzo, because that gained him several tenths. He now leads by almost 8 tenths. One of the largest leads in the short run so far tonight for any driver, by the way. This is where the difficulty to pass comes back into play. Matt Cucker is trying to force a line to work underneath that Denny Hamlin paint scheme in the battle for 6. Can't get it to work, though, as Ippolito, Herrera, Sullivan right on behind as well.
Yeah, everybody just tucked in behind one another, going all the way up into P13, where there's a little bit of a break between Herbert and Neeb and Nebben. But anybody else in that within P13 and up, close to one another, bar Doucette and Moose.
Look at that behind him, though. Pereira with another massive send, and this time it's into the fender of Ippolito. Ippolito's into the wall. Caution is out. And the Dynamic Autosports back machine is crumpled up from that one. That was not pretty, Lorenzo.
I think Chris Bullhide just put it best. That was an assault. But that dive, inside of turn number 3, obviously the car would understeer towards the outside portion of turn number 3 and 4. So it's a complicated thing to do. You know, you want to commit, but you want to commit as safely as possible. That didn't happen there.
Caution number 7 of the night, by the way. It's a good time to remind you of the incident limits for tonight. Drivers will have to serve a penalty if they reach 17 incident points tonight. As per all NIS competition, 25 incident points will end the evening for you as a driver. That is the standard amongst the entire season, whether it's the 50% races or the full length events, such as tonight. Just something to keep in mind, Lorenzo, with some of the drivers having fair bits of damage. Of note, Ethan Quarter will gain a lap back, now is 1 lap down in the Carl Lawn tribute paint scheme. Mixed pit strategies, though, coming in. Matt Cucker, Bruno Pereira electing to come in this time from the top 10, surprisingly.
Yeah, I'm a little bit intrigued of what Cocker and Pereira. Well, Pereira might go for damage repair, repairs the damage that he has maybe in the front, in the side portion of his car. But Cocker coming in early over here is a little bit surprising.
And Matt Cucker's actually jumped out of the car. I think Matt Cucker has said enough's enough. I'm shocked here. Matt Cucker had only apparently a touch bit of back end damage, and he has elected to park the car for the time being.
Just need to look where the safety car is, because depending on circumstances, he might just getting those repairs, be thrown all the way back. Yeah, that's what he's doing. I imagine as much. Throw the car to the pit lane, get as much repair as you can possibly get, even though you know you're gonna lose spots, but you're feeling that this race is generating so much attrition that you're gonna get more yellow flags, right? So you can repair as much as you can, and then still be within the lead lap.
Can confirm Cucker has jumped back in the car after all of that. Pretty sure based on what he had happen, he might have wanted to look at how he got the damage. Bruno Pereira only had a 5.6 second pit stop though, for comparison's sake. When in the case of Pereira, I believe it may have been fuel only here, and here's the intriguing layer to the strategy onion at this point. With the max run estimated about 80 laps or so tonight, it's still just outside the window by a little bit for a two-stopper on fuel.
Yeah. And Cocker again back into the pit lane, trying to get as much repair as he can get on the wing and also on the back panel.
I think he might have to rush out of here though, because I don't know if he realizes this. It's one to go. Cocker has just realized it. Ryan Doucette still in control of the field. It is Nexus 1-2. Followed by the lockdown racing machine of Delaney, Mauricio in 4th, Oshalum in 5th, and Bulci in 6th, with Sullivan, Wilhite rounding up the top 8 positions. Green flags back out. In sync go the Nexus cars. And look at Delaney, a great start from the inside line. Delaney diving it hard for second, gets there, just about clear of Moose for second position.
Yeah, Moose just couldn't get the cutback overtake that he probably wanted to on Delaney in the inside line. So the commitment out of Delaney right there has been really good, as a few drivers in the inside lane. That is Nick Nevin, and also Cameron Herbert trying to fight in the inside lane and just cannot get the run they probably want to.
There's a side-by-side still now, the 7 and the 14, and what a run it's been for that Denny Hamlin paint scheme. Move that Toyota Camry to 5th, plus 16 now. Mulchi having the run of the season for him so far with the pace showcase. Now he's amongst the main cars in the pack.
Going to be an interesting one, as I can see Oshlem trying to use the inside lane, trying to make the move on Bouye, but he just doesn't have the room. He wants to be a little bit off into the offset, trying to get as much clean air as he can possibly get, but the number 7 with a little bit of a struggle, especially into 1 and 2.
Yeah, looking like just struggling in terms of trying to find the line this time. Oshlem trying to take as high a line as he could there. Oh, wow. Robert Miller has significant back-end damage. After some of the incidents, now is looking to battle for 12th position with Alan Wilson III. To the inside goes McClenny, meanwhile, who has lost several positions throughout all the shuffling. Keep in mind, McClenny ended up being at one point inside the front of the field, inside the top 5 in fact, before led by several drivers before. Now we're looking to gain back some of those spots for 13th to the inside of Wilson III.
Yeah, a little bit of a send. Can we see the number 28 catching that back? Doesn't look like it. So McClenny moving to P13, and does he have the action on that car to move up 1 spot? But he moves up to the top lane, nearly gets on the lane of Alan Wilson III. But at the end of the day, that inside line for McClenny doing really good job, and now definitely to P13.
Good move from Cade McClenny from the California Club on the iRacing service. Looking back up to Mauricio and company. And the rhythm train continues now. Mauricio, keep in mind, had showcased earlier good short run speed in the Countdown racing machine. Curious how the adjustments may have come into play for Mauricio to try and keep up with the cars in front, though, Lorenzo, if you want to be one of those with a chance to win here.
I would say not overdrive the car. Don't try to make any adjustments on the brake bias. Try to run as, I would say, the best of your possibility lines that don't get into much dirty air. That wasn't the case, though. I think you got some pretty nifty dirty air from Patrick Moose on that line 1 and 2 out of turn 1 and 2. But so far, I think doing a very calm, consistent, steady drive to be within top 5. I think he hasn't broke up the top 5 from the start of the race. So the Brazilian having a really good job using the NiS as a preparation race for his final race this Monday.
Known when it comes to Gabriel, keep in mind, for running a lot of NIS competition too.
Yeah.
Very active when it comes to official racing on the service. In fact, one of the more active I can think of off the top of the dome here. Doing a good job still in that battle going on for third position. The top 2, though, are starting to break away a little bit. Delaney still trying to wheel up towards that middle line, but just can't find the cleaner pocket he's looking for. As you see in the background, Miller jumps up in our spot for 11.
And it's a little bit of a mirror situation to what happened to Doucette and while he was the hunter and Delaney was the hunted, right? Delaney was leading, seeing that middle inside line, and Delaney just cannot get the run that he wants as the 29 car, which is Jake Collins, have to fend off Bruno Pereira, which is in a little bit of a late race resurgence apparently.
Speaking of some of those battles there's Martel now in the bottom, the Shade Tree racing machine, breaking through some of the shade as William Amshoff would, despite the damage, continue to charge ahead. Here comes more Christopher. Trying to do more Christopher things and nearly bobbing around and nearly snapping around in the battle for 16th.
That is that danger of that offset car.
You were saying, Lorenzo?
Yeah, I was gonna say that is that danger of the offset car and overdriving way too much.
Again, or Christopher trying to dive to the inside, still can't get anything to work here. And keep in mind, when it comes to this facility, where these drivers are passing by in the back straightaway now, what it is currently, should say, that used to be the front straightaway for those watching for the first time when it comes to stock car action here at Phoenix Raceway. Part of the reason for the grandstand move and the change for the start and finish line, some of the sunshine, because, well, Arizona gets very hot, Lorenzo. And where they put the grandstands in what's now turns 3 and 4, that's where the shade is, as Jay Collins nearly approaches some of the wall.
Yeah, well, Collins having a little bit with the problems with the wall, nearly hits Bruno Pereira outside of turn number 2 and 3. Might lose one more spot to Martel on the inside, but having some struggles right there. As McGuire and McClenny gets within close to one another.
McClenny getting back in rhythm, and keep in mind, for those who may not recognize that car that McClenny has, when it comes to McClenny family, they race short track events when it comes to the state of California. In fact, at one point the family first and second California state champions with McClenny Bros Racing. McClenny, a 5-time track champion. His brother Cale is just in under 10 years old. At one point was the 2015 junior mini dwarf track champion for the main facility they race at in the state of California. So some of the short track presence being utilized there on that battle, as the head of this group is Robert Miller.
All right, that's interesting.
Keep in mind, a lot of short track experience is so valuable when it comes to a lot of these technical alliances these days. As we look, as there is a bit of trouble just up the road from, keep in mind, one car just nearly spun around. Cameron Herbert nearly went to the inside wall, was able to save it. We stay green.
Yeah, and that nearly ended up in disaster for Herbert, but still within the top 15. The question is, how badly worn are those tires after that incident?
Was in that battle with Robert Miller, and watch the corner exit.
Ew!
McGuire nearly got into the rear fender there, the 33, but instead, factory setup machine staying in a rhythm. Don't try and search the website. Go ahead.
And as a consequence, McGuire moves up finally within the top 10.
Long story when it comes to the factory setups machine, let's put it that way, as that car is back into a rhythm now in the other battle we were keeping up with, around 13th, 14th position behind them. Tyler Smith trying to regain some friends in the Goose machine, and by the way, part of the reasoning for, I think, the inspiration of that, not just Carl Edwards and this certain sponsor, is the Untitled Goose Game. As Amchov says, "Hello, Goose, I'm gonna pass you now."
Yeah, a little bit of a...
trouble towards the inside. Grunman, a lap car, nearly spun towards the inside there. Trying to let him go.
Yeah. A little bit of a dangerous move right there as he's continuing with Bruno. Bruno is getting loose out of the apron.
He spins up the racetrack. Bruno Pereira saves it. No caution. We stay green. They nearly pile up a second time at the back of the field. As Jeff Barnes checked up, he nearly got ran over from behind from John McNamara's car. We stay green throughout all the chaos.
Wow. It is that transition. I don't know what happened to Bruno's car exactly. I think it bottomed out during the transition to the dog leg, and that's what it brought him even closer to the inside portion of the track. And what a save from Bruno right there.
And the part of all of that, too, is can't confirm there was the contact with the 34. The 34 now has a crushed front end. Here's what happened with Pereira as, my goodness.
Oh.
When I seen that, I thought that was the big one.
I thought it would have been a big one as well.
Look at that footwork and wheel work this time. And the smart thing, look at the front tires. Locked it up to try and make sure to get it straightened out before it got to the outside wall.
And I think he even dodged the outside wall.
Yes, he did.
Wow. Call me surprised. I honestly thought he dinked the outside wall with the rear right. But no, what an amazing car control from the Portuguese driver.
Did we mention that was the halfway point of the race right there too?
Yeah.
How about that to wake you up a little bit, as the 34, as a result of the contact, has had to come on down. Meanwhile, the Doucette and Delaney show has ran away by more than 4 seconds now from Patrick Moose. Doucette has continued to lead throughout all this battling. However, the pace is now showcased from Delaney again towards the back bumper now of the Chevrolet Camaro. Traffic is ahead. The first driver up to be lapped is the 26th place car. Mark Padgett is just up the track. As Delaney goes up the track towards the outside, trying to get to the quarter panel, can't.
And just cannot get the run in as we see 3 wide with Tyler Smith. I think that's the inside lane. Makes the move. A little bit of a contact, but keeps it in the track. Still struggling with the grip. And Justin, that we nearly got a yellow flag number 8 right there. But Tyler's been making no friends whatsoever.
Smith again slides on back. Tyler Smith just a tick under 4K in terms of iRacing entering tonight. All over the pack. Meanwhile, the race lead is side by side. Delaney up top. Doucette at the bottom. 150 laps to go. Doucette trying to keep the lead as Delaney wants it back. Delaney with the preferred line on the outside. Dirty air being fed to both of them. Doucette forced to check up. Move Delaney back to the race lead for lockdown.
Yeah, so Mark Padgett over here playing a little bit of Judge, jury, and executioner on the overtake out of Delaney on Doucette. Stick to one line, and that one line favored Delaney on the long run. So the number one car back into the lead as the eNASCAR Coca-Cola driver struggling a little bit with that dirty air and trying to get closer towards that number one.
Bucking behind again still. The repair's done for the 34. Back and rolling. Hit fresher tires now in turn because of that pit call. These drivers now at the start of lap 165 already, as this race has blistered on by here for NiS Open Top Split action, the second last total Top Split race for NiS Open this year. To reset your top 10 at the moment, it's Delaney, Doucette, Moose, Mauricio. Birchie along behind is Oshalou, with Wilhite, Miller, Sullivan, and McGuire, your top 10. But that will take a quick step aside. More action coming up on RaceSpotTV from Phoenix.
iRacing is a sim racing game that combines a true-to-life racing experience with an online community of virtual racers from all around the globe. iRacing offers a multitude of officially licensed cars and tracks, laser scanned with millimeter accuracy. Their car models and mechanical systems are based on real-world physics and engineered in cooperation with manufacturers and race teams. Their skill license system ranges from rookie to pro, ensuring members are always pitted against those with similar skill sets. Members are able to sign up for a weekly race series, compete in time trials, host a private race with friends, and participate in racing leagues created and run by the community. With over 170,000 members, iRacing works in partnership with renowned motorsports organizations like NASCAR to deliver virtual races based on the real-life NASCAR Cup Series, as well as many other series on the NASCAR ladder. iRacing also features team racing, providing a variety of options for members to create and manage their own teams. Race with friends or real-world teammates in full-length endurance events like the 24 Hours of Daytona, Spa 24, or the Bathurst 12 Hour. Additional partners include IMSA, World of Outlaws, Supercars, and IndyCar, allowing members to race in their very own Indianapolis 500, Bathurst 1000, Chili Bowl, and many more iconic events. This is iRacing, delivering the most authentic racing experience short of getting into a real race car. Sign up today at iRacing.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to Phoenix Raceway for tonight's action of the Phoenix Raceway season finale for NiS competition here on RaceSpotTV. It's been a beautiful race and a beautiful picturesque scenery here in Avondale, Arizona. Brand new scan of Phoenix Raceway. Jonathan Delaney has led 126 of 172 laps so far. He leads by 1 second over Ryan Doucette. Justin Prince, Renzo Bonder with you with Tower Maxon in producer seat. Again, live timing and scoring can be seen at RaceSpot.tv/timing to keep up with your favorite teams and drivers. And right now, just past 50 laps into this run, this is the longest run total now of the race. after seeing several early caution flags after the 40-lap run that started the action we're in zone.
Yeah, finally we got within a really good groove out of the track. Of course, that's where we can start to see which cars were a little bit favored to a early to mid portion of a stint, and which cars had a little bit of adjustment towards that the full run later stints. As Tyler Smith once again gets within the door out of the number, just trying to get around that number 29 of Jake Collins, but that number 20 just, again, like we mentioned, trying to make a little bit of some friends, but struggling on that job, as he also is struggling with the tires.
Smith with a big bobbles again. That battle was for 18th position. They're nearly 20 seconds behind Delaney currently. A lot of damage to Jake Collins as a result of one of the earlier caution flags. Bruno Pereira has also cycled back there. Bruno Pereira has nearly spun out 2 times, 1 straightaway already. Pereira with some big saves. Pereira now wants 19th position.
And Pereira with the big send going to turn number 3, but just couldn't hold it in the inside. They had a little bit of a merge. Ben Smith with the preferred line going outside of turn number 3 and retaining that P19 for a short moment.
So back to soloing in go those drivers. Again, it's Delaney and Doucette separated by 1.2 seconds or so. Patrick Moose is 7 seconds plus adrift, with Mauricio, Birchie, Oshalum, Wilhite, Miller, Sullivan and company, by the way. It's been intriguing how all this has played out dynamic-wise, but also skill-wise, because when it comes to tracks like this with this package, and this is why so many love the 750 horsepower low downforce package of the Gen 6, it brings the talent to the top of the short tracks like this.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a mix of getting the setup right, but I think most importantly how you drive the car on the track and how much ground you can make up and how safe you are during your stint you can have really good early stint pace, but after a few struggles you can dip so hard, and it's basically impossible to claw out of the hole you actually dug yourself in.
Battle side by side now for third. Mauricio wants the position from Moose. Moose trying to squeeze hard through all of this. And the interesting thing to think about too is with the next gen car essentially becoming the Cup Series car next year, it's going to be intriguing how much could change technical lines dynamic wise on iRacing 2, because there's been some who have been slipping and sliding and trying to snake their way away from that car, such as Bruno Pereira's massive saves tonight, while others have been trying to focus on the development of that car as well. Keep in mind, a lot can change over the course of the next few months, potentially in service 2 with it.
Yeah, I was talking to Michael Conti about this, about the changes and how different it is in terms of not only just driving but setting up the car. He says that there's a lot of variables to contend about the new car, and it's going to be an interesting one who gets ahead and try to make the best setup possible. And like you said, there is still that thing of you don't know if it is the final build, right? Because we are not racing until next year or next season with these cars appropriately in. So new additions or new improvements coming into the physics of the car that could change everything on how the car is built up. And looks like I think Tyler Smith might yield with the tires and might come into the pit lane, but not this time by.
Yeah. I was about to say, keep an eye towards that, since there are still at least 10 plus laps expected for some of these drivers on this stint, which will put them in the 2-stop window for sure. 60-60. Looking at Sullivan and company meanwhile, as keep in mind as well, some of the recent tests, keep in mind with next gen's car, they were testing out various different configurations of different things for the steering and different types of things for the aerodynamics. The car is still an important for development too. There are There's already been tests involving Bowman Gray Stadium recently, and so forth. As big slide for Patrick Moose.
And somehow gapped it on the track as Gabriel Mauricio just cannot contend for the move right there. Still within the near quarter panel of Patrick Moose right there. Just trying to, I think, going for the field game right here, for a possible overcut on the number 4-6 car on the track.
Scheduled pit stop for the number 11 machine. Last time by, Amshoff has just opened up the window. So now drivers are making scheduled stops. Also bad news for fans of McClellan. He has just suffered technical issues, which may see him fall laps down unless sorted. So that is something to keep an eye on, as here comes the fresh tires once more. The fall-off pace, by the way, it's even out for much of the field at about 1.7 to 1.9 seconds. That's the sweet spot we're in, so where if you fall below that mark on your fall-off, you've got a problem.
You got a big problem, and especially on a track that you have to manage that drop-off, right? If you get a really big drop-off, especially early on, it's like I said, it's a hole that you cannot claw yourself back from. So you have to be very conservative on your tires. It's funny that, and let's just say turn number 1 and 2, normally some cars, let's just say the IR18 where I do come from, you can go up to 50 to 75% acceleration out of turn number 1 and 2. In here, it is a progressive from 20 to 30, 40, 50, and once you're in the 50, that's basically outside of the turn, then you can hit off the gas and go 100, right? But when the tires gets worn, that changes everything. Sometimes you don't even go 400, you go about 75% to 400 on how you get out of the corner, just because you're trying to conserve as much as you can those tires.
And some of the best when it comes to stock car racing, because of that need to be careful on the throttle like that. If you want to save the tires, you can't use the pedals like an on and off switch, the way it's been described, right? Caution flag lights will now turn on. Meanwhile, Alan Wilson III's 28 car has had a problem. This will make it a about a one-stop rather, on fuel to the end from this point. Here's a look at what happened as bye-bye.
Yeah, car gets loose, and depending on circumstances, nothing you can do right there. For those who went into the pit stop like Amshoff, I don't think that is the best thing that can happen for you, right? Because you're 5 laps in and everybody's going to get fresh rubber, and they're going to be still a lap ahead of you.
Amshoff likely will have to take the wave as a result. He was the only driver in the entire cycle to have hit lead lap. As now, that long run has solved the tire set conundrum. That could have happened if the precautions continued. How big, by the way, was that lead? Look at that pit lane delta between first and second on back. Doucette had to back up a touch for his pit box. Delaney, has he figured out his pit box issues in this one? We're about to find out, as he's had a mistake just about every single stop. He slid the tires again.
Whoa.
This time he does make the stop, though.
Just barely.
Seems to be catching him off guard. Keep in mind that's concrete for the pit stalls, asphalt for the track itself. Delaney actually a quicker stop in turn. Ryan Doucette's mistake does not cost him a position, however, as Moose, Mauricio, Bergie coming off the top 5. Robert Miller is now amongst some of the front runners, potentially with Wilhite. And the jump on Miller.
Yeah, no major changes on this pit stop. I expected to have some big movers right here. Apparently, we thought that Miller might have gotten the jump on Wilhite, but the number 5 car just manages to get away just in time on the number 22 car.
We have 20 cars in the lead lap as a result of that caution flag. More Christopher has been the lucky dog this caution. Amshoff and Jeff Barnes are expected to take the wave. The case for Barnes, remember, though, he was hit from behind after one of the major checkups involving Bruno Pereira's machine. He needs a caution and quick. He's already without a back bumper panel on his machine. It's going to be the tough part for some of these drivers from this point forward is, can they keep themselves in the situation where they can get the lucky dog? And or, for the case of the waiver rounds, to increase their lead lap count to 22, can they get the caution they need, Renzo?
Yeah, that's a really good question to make, you know, and I don't think that Barnes is going to be able to get that additional yellow flag. But of course, you said that caution brings caution. We Brazilians like to say that the yellow brings yellow, which is literally the same thing. So it's gonna be an interesting one how this restart is gonna go, because that's the first time after a really long run on the stint that we're gonna see cars duke it out on the track.
So expecting those drivers to get the wave and will this time. As now we have a delayed restart here. Apparently there was an issue around the back of the field hearing over the radio. It's the reason there was a car stopped on the track. Matt Cucker had a problem with his number 9 iRacing machine. And because Cucker stopped on the track as they took the one to go, that extended the caution period an extra lap.
Yeah, just trying to take a look and see what happened to Cucker. But looks like the car just went like unstable during the not unstable, but it's kind of like what the proper word is, stalled during during the run.
Cucker's car. That's why we have this additional pace lap. But we'll have 117 to go when we get back underway. As a result here, Delaney has led a majority of them, 148. Doucette has led 40. 3 apiece for Mauricio and Smith in this one. Jonathan Delaney having one of the best races he can have tonight. He's absolutely had dominating pace from the onset, especially on the long run in clean air tonight. He came into this evening with just 6 victories in NiS competition in 2021 for the open side. And now he'll lead us to the green flag this time. Let's go to a Race Spot fan immersion and listen on in as Jonathan Delaney goes to the gears. Jonathan Delaney now leads by 0.4 of a second as they pass by that signature cactus-shaped flag stand here at Phoenix Raceway. An impressive night for him. Patrick Moose keeping up the pressure this time, and Ryan Doucette. Have to see how the number 6 machine adapts to keep up with his technical alliance mate in Doucette here. Pace-wise, Lorenzo, remember, was about 8 seconds back. Moose was the last run.
Yeah, with some struggles with these, looks like the mid-run for Moose right there, of course, aided by the lower traffic during some portions of the race, and Gabriel Mauricio marking him pretty hard throughout the entire stint. So I think Moose has got a little bit of a groove. Let's see if he can keep up with both drivers, that Doucette and looks like that Doucette and Delaney have been on another level.
Meanwhile, Matt Cucker still trying to recover from his situation earlier, being as high as second, and Cucker wants to go places, to the bottom this time. Cameron Hibbert tries to squeeze a little bit, but the 33 has the run. Cucker still not able to progress on forward. You can tell Matt Cucker wants to get up to the front, especially as we approach 100 laps to go.
Yeah, he's trying to make moves, you know, and you want to be inside the top 10, coming to those final 80, 70 laps, and where every kind of like hell breaks loose on the track. So it's going to be interesting which lines Coker work, but he's pushing the car way too hard, in my opinion, Justin. You really don't want to be reaccelerating way too hard, because he's counter steering way too much, that car. And if you do that, that sawing of the steering wheel, you waste a lot of the tire life that you probably want to have during the latter portion of your stint prior to the final pit stop.
Still, he's trying it again. Cucker to the bottom. And again with the squeeze this time with the 33. Not able to clear on by again as Cucker. However, he does hold on to quarter panel for turn 3. That's talked about. Cucker is known for, if he needs to make up track position, he'll try that. To the wall this time is Tyler Smith. The 20 machine now with some damage.
Yeah, how much of damage there is on that 20 car doesn't look like much. I think he just scraped the wall a little bit. And car looks like it is intact, as he's still within the grasp of top 15.
Still, Cucker, as all that went on, was able to clear on by the 33. Now setting his sights ahead for Nick Neben's car. Keep in mind, plus 17 now on the night. The Operation Sports machine now forced up to the top side this time. Cucker gets himself just about clear. Neben gives him a break, lifts down the straightaway. There's some of that give or take coming in. Pereira says, if you're going to give him space, I'm going to take this.
Yeah, Neben just driving really, really conservative right there. You know, trying to give as most space as he can get in case of driver going off the wrong line. But Cocker over here just on a really good early restart pace, as now he's within the sets of Maggie Maguire.
Robert Miller, meanwhile, he's ready to reappear for the top 5, battling side by side with the fellow Toyota Camry. Better run this time, though, from the high line. Archie able to take advantage of not taking the dog leg there.
Oh.
Miller still stuck along the yellow line this time, however, nearly drifting up towards the door.
And Miller with some struggles, especially during the rejoin, and it nearly made contact.
He didn't want to give up that space there. They were still side by side for the entry. Miller trying to keep it side by side fully. And now, Archie is able to clear on by to move back into 5th position. Will Height now joins the fray.
Gets blocked off pretty much early by Miller on the entry of turn number 1 and 2, and Will Hyde have to be the passenger once again of that dirty air.
Patience game resets itself here. These drivers nearly a full second behind Mauricio. Keep in mind, Mauricio, you see just up the track, has kept up with Moose short runs so far. Doucette has now dropped back 0.8 to Delaney with 100 to go this time by. An indication that the 24's time has just about run out after electing to take the wave a few cautions ago. Jeff Barnes will have to pit. And our driver is also reporting some issues. Cabe McClenny, who was able to rectify some of his problems earlier, has indicated he may have to come in soon. Under 100 laps to go.
Yeah,
Here is some of that battling there as you see that communication. Part of that was, when should I go? And here's the challenge of saying, okay, take it next lap, Lorenzo. Some people don't want to wait till next lap.
Yeah, it's that tricky thing, and McClenny just trying to be as effective and clean as possible. And even though Cocker now is within the top 10, McClenny just now, I gave you the room, you made the overtake, now go away. Not tell to go away, but Travis Hardy's again, let me see if I can keep up with you so we can get closer to Jazz Sullivan.
Tucker has already pulled away in turn from McClenny by nearly a full second. Next car up is Chad Sullivan, as you mentioned, who is nearly 6/10 up. Now it's going to be intriguing how you play out the strategy here, Lorenzo, because the fuel window is expected to open up in about 17 laps. However, drivers can go now way farther than that with about 40 to go as long as they can be. Do you risk coming in and trying to go for the undercut, or do you bank on the cautions at this rate? We haven't had a green flag cycle all night.
It's going to be a tricky one. I probably would have tried to split this 50-50 of sorts, you know, try to get a 60. If you can get a 60 laps in and try to pit with 60 laps to go, I would try to go for that, because you're playing with the undercut strategy of sorts. At the same time, you're giving yourself some leeway of possibilities of, oh, if we get a yellow flag, maybe I can cut some time over here and try to fend off a few spots, because I don't have to rely on maybe fuel saving or something of the nature anymore. But that's my strategy, and I'm a plebeian, so that's why I'm not on the track, and they are, and they have guys that are working that mathematic and those fuel numbers and tire numbers than anything else.
Looking back up towards the front, Moose, Mauricio still lining up. Also of note, Cucker has just been let go by Sullivan, Lorenzo.
Yeah, not only that, but you just saw a little bit of a struggle for Moose.
Opens up the door for Mauricio. Moose able to hold on, though, Lorenzo, for the time being. As, speaking of struggles, the struggle bus continues for the 33 now.
Nice save, though.
Burt really loose towards the bottom of the racetrack. Martel now to the high side. Collins is also in this grouping, as well as the fresher tires of Jeff Barnes. Look at that, though, the 33 nearly to the walls. Some of the traffic now wants to get on through. This could get dicey now with Barnes, as well as the 27 wanting to go. That 27 is Jacob Klein, who pit 2 laps ago.
So what you want to do right now for Herbert is just try to stay on that outside line and try to run the best line you can possibly drive, as they get overlapped by Jeff Barnes, and that got a little bit closer to call inside of the backstretch.
Martel trying to send it in for 16th. Nearly gets to the quarter panel to 33. Big checkups from Tyler Smith. Both drivers able to keep things clean for the time being, though. How long will that last now with them back single file? They're also now being reeled in by more Christopher in all of this.
Yeah, it looks like the car is having massive struggles. Both cars, especially when coming out of the turns during re-acceleration. More Herbert out of turn number 2 than Smith out of turn number 4, because the car is getting off a little bit for Herbert, and I think he's struggling with the best re-acceleration pattern out of turn number 2. But even though he gets a look on the inside.
Side by side, up in front, side by side, right on behind. More Christopher says thank you for Martel, as both him and Collins have passed on by. Front of the group now, side by side again. The 33 to the quarter panel of the 20 this time. Arabobble. And Again, frustration you have to think has to start building up here. Jay Collins now with a chance to leapfrog his way ahead here.
I think the frustration, in my opinion, might not be more making the overtake. I think it is struggling during the re-acceleration, Justin. Because what happens is you're brushing off the tires. With that brush off of the tires, you lose grip. Car gets more unstable. As you can see, another save from Herbert, as he's gonna lose 1 or 2 more spots. As now Christopher Christopher gets passed by, and he blocks off Matthew Martel pretty swiftly into the entry turn number 1.
That's a way to phrase it. It almost looked like trying to cut him off using a sawzall saw.
Oh!
As Collins gets the back end of Smith. Smith with the save. Cameron having to check up in the 33. Passing on by is Martel on the outside. My goodness.
Yeah, you can see that Collins' car just got way too aggressive on the entry out of turn number 3, and Smith was a little bit loose and slow on the turn 3 entry. As you're going to see on the replay, Smith commits towards the corner. You're going to see now that Collins' car is just way too much faster. Gets a little bit of a bump on the fender of the number 20, and you're going to see the number 20 just locking its rear. As we looking on the slow-mo, and the car's just waving around. You're going to see now the 33 checking up just in time.
That did cost the 33 several spots, though. Smith is now back to 19th. Collins is only 4 spots away from where he had originally started, 4 back of that. In 16th now. Up towards the front again. McClenny trying to go high, wide on Handsome on the outside behind Maggie McGuire for the time being. This is the battle with Pereira, also grouped on in for the time being, as we are just a few laps away from the start of the pit window and the green light to make it to the end.
And what impresses me a lot is the pace that the guys in front are displaying. Last lap for Delaney is a 28.0. Of course, we haven't mentioned about the track conditions at this point of the race, but even though we're going to 3 o'clock, 3 p.m. on the sim, track conditions are pretty much as equal as we started it.
I was about to say, I kept an eye on it. The most they reached Fahrenheit-wise was 101 degrees track temperature. That's dipped to the exact numbers we started off with the green flag tonight.
Yeah.
Very intriguing how that all plays out at a track like Phoenix, keep in mind, which, mind you, is in the heart of a desert.
And deserts are very hot, people. Don't be in deserts. Unless you have buckets of water.
I guess. Still battling on is 4th on back, Miller. Trying to utilize that bottom line still, and I've noticed more and more as the night's gone on, more drivers are not afraid to stick to the yellow line in 1 and 2. The rubber buildup seems to be helping the grip down there. It's still not as easy to pass Lorenzo, but the grip at least is there more consistently compared to earlier.
Yeah, you're getting better grip on turn 1 and 2 now. The problem is brushing off whenever you're re-accelerating the car. So you have to take that cautious approach when re-accelerating so you don't overdrive the car. And with the car being on the inside lane, it's natural to see the car kind of struggling for grip, especially when out of the re-accelerator. As Cocker right now, we didn't see it, have a little bit of a struggle re-accelerating out of 3 and 4.
Matt Cocker, by the way, that car in the backdrop 7th position now, as Virginia scrapes the outside safer barrier going down the back straightaway. 80 to go this time for these drivers. This will get them to the green light to make it on fuel from this point on forward. So we're about halfway total in terms of the estimated runs, as Cocker now going to the inside for 6th position.
Makes a little bit of a fake movement right there, but just cannot capitalize.
Yeah, just having that difficulty of the longer the run, the harder it is to pass compared to, say, the Freshies.
Yeah.
These Goodyear Eagles.
And he's trying, though. Let's see if he's going to be able to be side by side once again out of the quarter panel. One quarter in, and just cannot get the run on the inside. That middle top lane just being the best line out of turn number 1 and 2, like we mentioned earlier in the broadcast.
That's helped them up a little bit in turn. Miller has picked up 3 car lengths from all of that as well. For reference, Delaney and Doucette are still matching lap times in the 21 or 28 ones and 28 twos. These drivers are a tenth or more off that pace, as here comes Jacob Klein with the fresher tires in his lap car. Now attacking Cucker. That'll cost Cucker some time.
And that must build up some frustration, doesn't it? Because it is out of three and 4. You need that momentum on 3. You're going to see that car on the inside. Have to stick towards the lane that might not be the preferred one for you. But let's see how quickly that number 27 cleared himself off of that 4-car train that he has ahead of him.
See how the 27 factors in amongst all of that. Bit of a bobble once again, Lorenzo.
Yeah, a little bit of a bobble for Booty right here, going to turn number 1 as the Dimley Hamlin's car gets some mid-late struggles, but now is going to be catched up by the number 27. Let's see where does that 27 go.
Can Cucker capitalize on where Klein needs to go? Keep in mind, Klein has started plateauing. These drivers not picking up time in oodles like he was before. In fact, Klein backing up hard on the corner. All this is while Klein tries to dive underneath. Miller still can't find a way underneath Mauricio's car, all while Moose nearly was under attack from Mauricio. Now the accordion effect's coming back into play again with all the dirty air. Of note, Jason Maines now out of the race. Bruno Pereira has elected to go for the undercut in the 26.
Let's see how that strategy is going to go for Pereira. He was actually affected by some struggles with the setup and skidded off the track a few times. And for Cocker right now, it has to be really frustrating to have a back marker splitting up you and the competitor that you're trying to fight for inside, which is nearly inside the top 5 for multiple laps now.
The difference between Klein's tires and the rest of the pack, keep in mind, 26. That's how quick the equalization could come into play. Hearing the reason Bruno Pereira has now had to come in was he apparently was running in red water temperature since lap 4. You heard that right. 237 laps, and he was running with the water temperature in the red. It has finally blown up for the 26.
Unfortunate, but that's why we always check our gauges.
I'm surprised he rested that long. I'm surprised the oil temps didn't spike with that number 2.
I'm surprised on that as well. If you run that with that thing in the red for basically more than two-thirds of a race, and still that hasn't blown up. Well, you do get a little bit cocky and confidence in thinking, oh, this could go all the way despite being in the red. No, it doesn't work like that. Not at all.
That leaves us down to a grand total of 28 cars running. Al Bajari is the last of those cars running in 30th position, 55 laps down. Look now towards the direction of Sullivan and company. McGuire now making some moves. McGuire up 17 spots in this pack.
Yeah, it was bound to happen, that overtake from McGuire on Sullivan, by the way.
I was about to say, decent recovery too from Sullivan, who was in the early 20s position-wise after some trouble earlier.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a struggle at the start. He qualified P4, dropped back a few spots during the race, and and is right outside the margin of the top 10, the number 21 car in this split. So the 21st highest I-rated driver in the top split. So getting some good recovery driving, getting that I-rating he probably wants at the end of the race.
Line, by the way, is let back Cucker, as now here comes the battle going again for 5th. Archie trying to build up the run on Miller, have to check up again. All these cars trying to find a way around each other has allowed Chris Wilhite to reel them back on in. They have now been essentially in the same ballpark pace-wise within a tenth of one another for a good 10-15 laps currently. The fastest though with the pack last couple laps, Matt Cucker, now that he's been let go. And now Matt Cucker watches the potential up ahead. Archie trying to build up the run. Again, having to back up the corner. Cucker trying to send it to the bottom, can't get there.
And moves with the top line, going to line number 3 and 4, and Mauricio was having to stay with line 1 and 2. There's a little bit of a dirt apparently on inside of turn number 3, but we don't know what it is properly. But we still go on green.
2 cars have now pit so far during this run. 11 in the 33. Amsoft, I should say, and Herbert's cars. Matt Cucker has elected to roll the dice. He's going for the undercut here.
Good work for him, you know. That would be a strategy for Coker, I think, in the soundbite in the race. That he wasted so much rubber, and I think he's going to be thinking, oh, I'm going to get some clear fields right here. I can make up that ground and clear myself away. So let's see what's going to happen with that number 9 car.
We're approaching the longest run of the race. And for Cucker, keep in mind, he had to work his way from the very back of the lead lap as a result of some of his issues. One of those, remember that pit stop coming to the 1 to green? Apparently that was part of the mistakes made throughout this one. Cucker's just completed his service, fall at least 1 lap down. Again, Mauricio continuing to ride just about to the back bumper of Moose every corner entry at this point. Just can't find a way to get a run, and now they've got traffic and Ty Ippolito ahead of them too.
And Ippolito is within 56 laps as well, so within the same range as them, but the problem is Ippolito has that big damage on the right rear of his car. He's gonna let both car go. He's gonna stick to the outside, but that might give problems for Mauricio during the transition out of 1 and 2.
It looks like Archie took the time to go for the slide job. Miller said, if you'll do that, I'm gonna pit. Miller has now come on in for the undercut as well here. All those drivers passing by Ippolito. Also, Nick Nebben has pit this time by, as well as Jerry LePage.
I think for Miller right here, that might have been the best move available, because you really don't want to be stuck trying to overlap a guy and maybe lose some spots. So let's try to go work for that undercut, as we also see Chris Wilhite coming into the pit lane and maybe possibly cut these guys over whenever they come into the pit lane.
So Wilhite this time by. The rest of the drivers who came in the previous time have finished up their respective service. And now it becomes the question, who will be the next one to blink here throughout all this? Still single file in this battle. The race lead is separated by 2 seconds. These drivers, let's put it this way. The undercut would not be the race-winning move likely at this rate, with a 7-second difference between second and third. McClenny in this time.
Meanwhile, McGuire now moving into P6.
There goes McClenny's car. Ryan Doucette has just joined them in the pit lane. Ryan Doucette from second position has attempted to undercut Jonathan Delaney after falling back 2 seconds. The question is, how will Delaney respond to this pit stop sequence? Delaney's going through 3 and 4. The battle for what is now second going on as well. Delaney will join Doucette in the pit lane with a big send to the commitment cone.
Yeah, just braking in time for the cones, and he's not going to get a slow down penalty or a stop and go penalty for unsafe pit entry or speeding in the pit lane. So question is now, Will Delaney avoid the mistake of jumping outside of his pit box or something like that?
Here's the big question. It was a 2-second fall off for much of the field, right? That's going to be critical for how this could play out. He has Mauricio bring in Birchie as well.
Moose missed the stall for a little bit. That might be damaging for him.
Patrick Moose had elected to undercut those drivers you just seen come on in. After having to back up for a split second could cost him some time. Matt Cucker, with his undercut, did not even pass Delaney or Doucette. Those drivers have completed their service, and guess what? Doucette picked up 2 seconds, but not anything more than he needed. In fact, Delaney kept the race lead, the net lead, I should say, for the time being.
Yeah, insane. And now the battle is on between both guys. The problem is there's traffic ahead, and Delaney gets a little bit loose in transition from 1 to 2.
So the traffic ahead includes the 15 machine moving up to the high side, Pajari, who was involved in early trouble, Jay Collins. The tail end of the lead lap now as a result here. Or I should say the tail end of the 1 lap down cars, because only one driver has yet to pit in McGuire. Doucette wants to take advantage of the sturdy air from Collins. Doucette to the inside. Delaney with the squeeze. Delaney holds on for now.
He's trying quite a lot, as the back marker car is actually Jay Collins. And Jay has a tire stint that is quite similar to both of them. And this is the difference of road racing. You don't get a blue flag going on the track. So Doucette has to do all the work on the track to try to close down the gap and make the overtake. Now is a little bit of a switchback because now Delaney has the dirty air.
Delaney fed the dirty air, but Doucette couldn't take advantage. All of that is while just up the road. Battles are starting to form up as well. So not just one car is feeding dirty air. How about 4 cars now? Here's the look on board from Delaney. Now back to Doucette. Doucette doesn't take the dog leg. This will now be for the overall lead. McGuire has come in this time by. More traffic ahead as the 10 stays up at the top.
Yeah.
An absolute traffic jam in the battle for the race lead as the next car up is Tyler Smith as a result of the pass from Collins for 18th. Delaney will lap by Smith. As McGuire has lost the race lead, Delaney now to the point.
Yeah, Delaney now up into the point once again, and there's more traffic ahead of Delaney. That is still Jay Collins. The first car was actually Tyler Smith. And now they are sandwiched between 2 cars. And what does Doucette do right here? Does he play the patient move, try to find that opening? Does he go a little bit more aggressive because he has a 2-lap over undercut on Delaney? And the one thing he really doesn't want to have is worn out tires early on, especially with that 2-lap gap that he has on Delaney.
And having the 1-lap older tires too. Remember this. Both of these cars, similar short run, Lorenzo, but Delaney's got the long run pace we've seen in clean air.
Yeah.
If you're Doucette, you have to make the move soon.
And maybe find the next lap or so, try to go a little bit more aggressive on the braking, but Delaney's doing that job, as we also see Oshalim trying to fend off Kate McClenny, which this latter portion of the race have a little bit of a resurgence and now fighting with the other guys around the track.
Number 7 leaps up as we go back up to Doucette, who stays within 4/10. Delaney still cannot find a way around Jay Collins at the moment in the low-lying machine. Delaney really had to back off that time and change up his line because of the dirty air. They're also now reeling back in more Christopher a little bit. Next cars after that will be Amshoff, Barnes, and then McGuire's car. That's how much McGuire lost time on the racetrack. Despite now having 10 lap pressure tires in much of the field, the 12 is 23 seconds back from going just that little bit farther.
It's going to be insane. As I'm just trying to find over here the net gap that Doucette is right about a half a second, so Doucette's time is running out over here, but What about Ippolito right here? 72 laps within the stint. He's going to be the one with the fresher tires than everybody else. Of course, he is in P13. But if we get a yellow flag, that would be the life save of the century for Ippolito, and that could bring him back into this race.
Here's the bigger thing with Ippolito's situation. I don't think it's necessarily how much fresher the tires will be. It's he's got so much damage, he would need a decent, to get a decent top half of the field finish, Lorenzo, he needs a caution. Ippolito does, for reference.
Yeah.
The race leads still half a second. In fact, Ippolito, though, is among the next cars who could lose a lap within the next 10 to 15 if Ippolito can even go that distance. These drivers have just passed Ippolito for position. McGuire is now up to 13th.
Yeah, trying to fend off a little bit the attacks from Cameron Herbert right there, as McGuire still within the verge of top 10.
Back straight away. Ochelum has hit the inside wall, and the 7 machine is demolished. No caution, we stay green, and it was a mistake on his own, hitting the outside wall off of turn 2 that pin-ponned him to the inside.
Oof. That so-called kinetic force took Ochelum into the inside portion of the track. Let's see how much damage that will affect the number 7 car, but obviously already lost a few spots. That is unfortunate for the number 7, having a great race so far.
That might be the end of a top 10 run, may give Nick Nebben that run in turn. By the way, you were just seeing Patrick Moose a little while ago. How about taking advantage of the traffic to its fullest? Will Height now boxed in behind lap traffic. Mauricio looking to take advantage as well. That is McNamara, who is trying to find space here. Will Height has lost a couple spots in the span of 1 lap as a result.
And what can we do? Can Will Height do other than shrug and just take traffic given and traffic take it, right? And unfortunately, it didn't go his way. Now the problem is for Moose, he has 1 car ahead of him, which is Greg Adney, as we heard that Ippolito is going to come into the pit lane this time now. Well, then that means that all cars have pitted and they all have fuel to the end, and we are approaching about 50 laps to go. We are on 52 laps to go, and it's going to be 53 laps to go, but it's going to be an interesting race nevertheless, this final part of the stint.
To correct you, it's 42 to go at the stripe.
Oh yeah, true. I forgot my mathematics. Plus, it's late in the day. Yeah.
Either way,
nobody's going to notice.
Will Height is now back to 7th. All that is now he passed by some of the traffic. And now it gets to the intriguing part of things, where will we stay green? No, that's a bit of a loaded question, but it's been close a couple times, and a caution from this point would make things really interesting on how they would play out. Let's put it that way. Drivers have about 3 tire sets to play with currently. 2 or 3.
Average. I would say
Yes,
3
indeed.
average. 3 average.
Will Height now having to fight very hard for 7th position. Archie trying to get to the inside now in the Denny Hamlin paint scheme. Very impressive drive for someone who has just 176 starts. 41 coming this year on ovals alone. Will Height takes the high line. Will Height shows the speed of the high line. As mentioned, that dog leg has just not been too strong for most of the field once you turn more than 10 laps on the tires.
Yeah, it's so hard. Like I said, the first part of your stint is going to be a little bit loose, then gets tight on the second part of your stint. Like when you go into lap 20 to maybe 50, after that, 50 to maybe 45 until the end, it gets a little bit loose depending on how hard you're racing that car. As now Will Height still trying to fend off from Bunjay, but that number 5 is doing a really good job, as Ochelum is still struggling with the car.
To the point where he's actually still trying to fight a little bit despite all the damage, but Chad Sullivan wants a top 10, the ISCA competitor. Nearly to the outside wall, in fact, on corner exit.
Oof.
As Oshlin trying to find some clean space to try and run and find a way around McClenny's machine as McClenny goes sway towards the top line this time. As the back bumper says on McClenny's car, don't worry, he does this in real life.
Yeah.
There it is right there. See the message? Very bottom of the bumper underneath the Camaro. Does that make you calmer or more tense when you see that?
It makes me a little bit more. I would say calmer. Yeah, calmer. I would say calmer, but I'll be frowning in my head is like, why are you putting that in your car? But
because like we talked about, he races late models in real life.
True that. It's that thing of, you know, being experienced in ovals and bringing a little bit of fun into your car and try to enjoy the memes that some of the deliveries on NASCARs allow you to do.
Meanwhile, Chad Sullivan is trying to wheel that Reaper Speed Lab Speed Plan machine on that top groove. Sullivan, keep in mind, at one point was running decently inside the top 10 before some of the incidents. First third of this race. Despite the damage, though, we'll give credit, the 7 is holding on fairly strongly with the pace in that car setup. Sullivan just can't build up the run yet, Lorenzo, to pounce, it seems. He might get a chance here, though.
But doesn't get the run, gets the dirty air out of McClenny, out of turn number 1 and 2. Oshlin lives to fight another day. You know, you gotta commend Oshlin, even with the damage, he's putting up a really good fight, but it's like, it's when rather than if he makes the overtake. But Sullivan thinks otherwise. Big save from Sullivan on the inside of turn number 4.
Our big bobble from that 21 machine tonight as everyone goes up to the top groove. One of the closer battles on the racetrack. And everyone's formed up into small packs at this point. Delaney's pulled away by 2 seconds from Doucette with some of the help of the traffic. Miller and Cucker are grouped together within 6/10. Then it's Moose, Mauricio, Birchie, and Wilhite who are all grouped together 5th through 8th. Speaking of which, they look to change spots for 7th and 8th position. Then you have that grouping we've been keeping an eye on for 9th on back. Just 13 cars on the lead lap. Wilhite wants to try and be amongst those who stay within the top 7 on the racetrack. Wilhite still running high line and high and handsome in the high side motorsports machine. Near contact once again towards the inside. Wilhite with a big bobble, that's going to cost him.
That's going to cost him booty. He's going to be able to make the overtake. I think what aided him is the fact that Barnes' car is right in front of him. So he might have got some dirty air, which affected compromised his line going in. And Bucci just has nothing to do about it. Just said thank you very much and nabbed the position out of the number 5 and moved up now into the top 7.
And now, can Jack be nimble and Jack hold on to this position for now? Under 30 laps to go on the racetrack. Delaney has now led 232 of 283 completed laps for reference, by the way. Matt Cucker's call of the undercut is still looking very strong, to the point where he is still 4+ seconds ahead of this entire pack.
Yeah. And he is just as fast as the leaders. Like, only the leaders and Booty are actually faster than him, or just as fast during the stint.
On as he keeps cleaning up nose on that front end, Cucker does. He's in a good spot. Is still follow along with Birchie's machine. So now it's the matter of, can these drivers hold on in these battles too? We've seen how these drivers have burnt up the rear tires. The track is getting even colder though, Lorenzo. from our starting point because the in-sim time is nearly 3:30, which means the sun is quickly starting to settle down a little bit with the transition. Will that be Mauricio's call for his car to wake up for another spot? Not quite yet, as Moose continues to hold on with the clean air.
Really good hold from Moose, though, as you mentioned, track picking down some heat. It isn't drastic, though. Track temperature is still 31 degrees Celsius, and it is 33 and 36 on track, so it wasn't a big decrease. It was a very marginal decrease in temperature, so it won't affect the tires way too much.
In other news, Maggie McGuire is now looking for the top 10 here. Attacking the number 7, she's already passed by Chad Sullivan's car. Emma McGuire with some of the freshest tires in the entire field, just 27 laps into her stint. She hasn't picked up any time on the race leaders, per se, but she has picked up time to her opponents on the racetrack to recover just about all the positions she had lost by going with the overcut. Still side by side now for 10th position. She tries to pinch up the 7 up the track, doesn't take the dog leg. Still, Ochelon not giving up easily here as they are reaching the 34. Wire able to clear on by regardless here as Sullivan looks to take advantage of the big bobble from the 7 off the corner.
Not only that bubble of the 7 is going to kind of kill him, as Sullivan might be able to go by, but he's facing difficulties. Car gets loose out of turn number 4. Keeps it in the track, though, but might lose about a tenth or two on that number 7. The problem for, I was going to mention, is McClenny. McClenny managed to go by McNamara right over here on the 34 car, but the problem is he lost ground in comparison to McGuire right here. Lost 0.2 of a second just because of car just getting way too loose in turn number 1.
Well, now struggling though with the 34 of McNamara, who has not been the easiest lap car to pass. He's been used as a pick several times, the 34 has tonight. Sullivan looking to use it for a good run, but forced to check up this time.
Yep.
And look who's joined the party. Despite the older tires, Nevin's right there as Sullivan again for the Sen can't get it.
And he's brushing off that tire more and more and more. I'm starting to think it is within the same range of grip as anywhere as the number 17 has. So that number 17 might have a little bit of a fighter chance, depending on circumstances, to grab that P2, P12 out of Chad Sullivan, given the circumstances that he's driving that car.
You can tell Sullivan wants to have this good finish. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Long-time iRacer, respected by some of his fellow peers on the service, and now he's trying to find a way around all of this in front of him. McGuire is still trying to find a way around McClenny, too, for ninth with all this, as Sullivan again is getting loose. 20 to go this time. 20 to go already taken by the leader, in fact.
Now the question for Sullivan, can he hang on for 20 laps?
That's a good question. He's kept the car fairly clean despite some of the contact earlier. Again, trying the top line once more. Nevin has evened out with these drivers within a couple 100s. They are starting to show a little bit of their wear a little bit too with all this.
Yeah, but Sullivan's showing that the most.
McClenny is starting to show it too in the battle just up the road.
Yep.
We just talked about with McGuire. McGuire struggling with the dirty air to pass by McClenny. Keep in mind, but McClenny is struggling in terms of the laps. The past couple has been 2/10, in some cases slower than even these cars who are scrapping. Big bobble from Nevin as Nevin to the inside.
Oof. I was going to mention that McClenny, the problem is when he made the overlap on McNamara, his car got massive understeer and nearly veer into McNamara's line. So he had to lift off the gas and try to keep a cleaner, tighter run into the lap, and that's what allowed McGuire to come in. And you can notice that number 12 car looks like he has better grip than the number 18. So we can totally see McGuire making the move maybe in a few laps.
We said that about Sullivan, but Sullivan's not been able to make that move at the same time, Lorenzo, keep in mind.
True.
We're to that point where it's the evening out part of the run, with that 1.7 to 1.9 second of fall off as Sullivan nearly falls off the track with how loose he got.
Yeah, that is a true fact. It is just quoting the great Maury Walker, right? Catching up is one thing, overtaking or passing is another thing. So it requires patience, but that patience needs to have a limit because you have 15 laps to go. Of course, you have about 15 miles left to race, but these laps come quick. It's 28 seconds per lap, so you have to capitalize that really soon.
Sullivan may have seen his time potentially run out for this one with the pace it's going along. With under 15 laps to go, anything can happen here, especially with some of the other traffic mixed in still, whether it's 34 in this pack, whether it's the grouping that's still stuck together for 5th position like this one. Mauricio throughout this entire time, Road to an electronic systems machine, has not been able to get side by side at any point with Patrick Moose, it seems. Moose has stayed cool as a cucumber. Number 6, the longtime Nexus Esports driver, continuing to hold firm in 5th.
And it's the same scenario that you mentioned of, you know, trying to work the line, but it just cannot overtake, right? And Mauricio trying to work that line, but not being able to overtake because Moose is getting some really good runs. And now Australian finds himself battling against McClenny.
As you see, McGuire has found a way around that 05 machine. That's in part what sparked all of this after McGuire got side by side the last time by. Sullivan, meanwhile, nearly to the wall. Oshalim gets loose, and here comes the race leader in Delaney. And now this is where all this can get dangerous. If you're Delaney, coming up to 10 to go this time for him, any sudden movement from these drivers battling could change the whole complexion of the night.
Yeah, it's a Wild West shootout between both drivers as if you blink or if you draw way too late, you're gonna probably die in the desert. So what do you do? What lines do you take on? When do you make the overtake is gonna be key. Also, another big battle is that Matt Cocker now caught up to Robert Miller for third place. So that battle is also engaged as well.
They've stayed close together, keep in mind, in that respective group, but under 10 laps to go. Delaney now with a chance to lap as high as 9th. He can find a clean hole through all of this. He has dominated from the drop of the green flag, started up on the pole, and has led more than 250 laps. Really loose Delaney that time. 7 giving space on the high side. Saw wow, Jeff Barnes on fresh tires is also trying to slice on through. So Delaney now laps on this by the 7, who nearly gets loose again. Sullivan to the inside. Now goes off the outside again. Sullivan to the inside once more, and now the caution waves.
Wow. Wow.
And now, get your popcorn ready, because this could get wild from here. We asked, how long could Sullivan hold on? The answer was to 8 to go.
Well, here we go, Justin Prince. Those who have a tire set, this is going to get dicey. I like this. As we look on the replay from Sullivan, car gets loose out at number 2. A little bit of a wobbliness, but the thing is, there was car on the inside, and nothing you could do. He tried to save that car over there, and he has to come in. I was looking, and some cars already into the pit lane, like Matt Cocker and Delaney and Doucette and Miller. I think that there's a good chance that Cocker might have gotten a speeding penalty, but remains to be seen because he came in too quick.
We'll have to see as Cocker gained several positions from his call. It's going to be intriguing how all this execution plays out. Delaney had a solid cushion over the rest of the pack. Meanwhile, look at all the differences coming up here. Patrick Moose is coming in. Ryan Doucette has already completed his service. Delaney is out first. Delaney holds on to the race lead.
Yeah, Miller coming out of the pit lane. He's going to be... Oh, Mauricio getting in a lot of trouble right here. He's probably going to lose several spots. Wuhai goes through. Oshalim goes through. But Oshalim has stayed out as well. So... Oh, Maurice is going to be shuffled back all the way down to P9.
A rough pit stop sequence for Mauricio. Loses several positions. And now, it gets really fun from here. Let's put it that way. Lucky dog situation would have been Sullivan, believe, at the time of the caution flag. In turn, believe it was McGuire who was able to pick it up. As a result of the caution, the 7 is taking time to be able to take some damage repair here. Now, here's the intriguing part of all this. This could be wild in terms of how hard drivers send it, but also could be very telling of which drivers made the right pit stop adjustments for this short run, because...
Yeah.
Let's put it this way. If you're having to come down again, you lose the race. If you're up the front.
Yeah. So, it all comes down to, you know, risking it. It's kind of like risking it all. So, if you're Doucette and Miller, you have to be aggressive to hell from the get-go to the finish, and then with a little bit of a dusty, sparkle dust, get that position from Delaney, because he's gonna fight hard.
For those who watch Contender Series action on Tuesday, it was a dominant performance at the time from Nicholas Shelton. He led more than 190 laps that night. He finished 12th. Why? Bumping and banging coming to the white flag, which opened up the door for Parker Retzlaff to win that respective race. Retzlaff just led the second to last and last lap that night. Will we see something similar, or will Delaney be able to hold on for 4 more laps to win a major top split event for NiS competition?
Ace up your sleeves, boys and girls. Here we go.
Delaney looking for NiS Open victory number 7 of the year. Resume that has included the Southern 500, several Watkins Glen events, New Hampshire and Road America. On the bumper is Robert Miller already. Miller lifts up the back bumper, contact in the bottom row, green flags back out, and a bad restart from Doucette.
Yeah, sleep top Doucette right there. That might open the door for Miller, but Miller has too much fender damage right there, and I don't know how much that is going to play in effect for Miller. But I think Delaney with that restart might have sealed the deal.
Will Height's now got a problem. He got significant damage from that bumping and banging. Miller to the inside of Doucette. Miller backs off. 3 laps to go from Phoenix. Here comes Patrick Moose underneath Cocker for 4th.
And Cocker is going to have to check up because of Miller being in front of him. So he's going to eventually might lose the position over here to the number 6. Gets pinched in, but it might get the run back going to 3 and 4.
Here contact from Mercurio now. Coming up, 2 laps to go. Final 2 laps for NiS on the season. Ryan Doucette setting the fastest lap of the race. He's lost 0.6 though to Delaney. Mauricio trying to find a way to thread on by. He keeps it 2 by 2 as the white flag is up. Delaney takes the white. Race is official. Final lap from Phoenix.
Massive struggle from Miller on the outside of turn number 4, but might retain third position after all in here.
Miller's pulled away a decent amount. Moose nearly contact with Cocker, but for Jonathan Delaney, he has put on a clinic of efficiency. Final set of corners. By the end of the night, he has led 261 laps. Delaney will celebrate. He wins at Phoenix. And the whole field just about avoids him. A wild finish with Delaney taking the checker. Doucette, Miller, Cocker, and Moose, the top 5. Lorenzo. The celebration has already led to Delaney having a demolished race car.
Well earned, though, from Delaney with that restart, basically checking everybody up. A little bit of a Jeff Gordon-esque restart right there, but it paid off for that number 1 car as you see the official results. After 312 laps, Justin, Delaney first place, Doucette second, and Miller in third.
Taking a look at those results once more. As mentioned, Delaney, Doucette, Miller, Cocker, Moose, the top 5. Riccio finishes in 6th with Bergie in 7th, McClenny in 8th, McGuire, Ashalom in 10th. Will Hine, as a result of his significant damage, finished just outside that top 10, though. He ended up losing all his positions just about on the lead lap as a result of the contact, Lorenzo, finishing in 11th.
Yeah, that is really unfortunate for Chris Bullhigh. We had a really, really promising restart right here as we still have so much drivers to go through. We'll just take a moment as here we go. Nick Neben in P12. Mort Christopher with a really good run getting P13. Tyler Smith managing to get within the top 15. Cameron Herbert in P15. William Mashoff in 16th, Matthew Martell 17th, Jake Collins 18th, Ty Ippolito with 19th place. In top 20 goes for Greg Agney.
20th position was 1 lap down. 21st was 2. John McNamara 21st position this evening. Wilson the 3rd. Barnes and Hadjet rounding out the top 24. LePage was 4 laps down to 25th. While Chad Sullivan finished in 26th with the DNF after bringing out the last caution. Jacob Klein, after early troubles, 15 laps down to 27th. Bajari kept on chugging along to finish 28th. Picked off several positions from the DNF list. Bruno Pereira and Jason Maines rounded out the top 30. Joshua Grunman 31st, Ethan Quartering in 32nd, Devontier, McLean, Wells, Benefield, and Peplinski rounded out the 37 entrants tonight from Phoenix. And what a way to essentially end, for the most part, top split action for NIS Open competition. Keep in mind, there is one more day of it available, and that is Sunday morning. But keep in mind, Lorenzo, this for drivers was considered one of the hotspot days to compete in NIS. A big victory tonight for Delaney, his 7th overall in NIS this year.
Yeah, really good win for Delaney right there, and showing why Lockdown has a really strong lineup moving forward. But can't wait to see what the next season brings, because it isn't the same cars. We're going with the next gens, and those downforce packages, those different packages might bring something of the spicy in terms of setups and driving out of the cars, because now you have more downforce, even though you might lose a little bit of power, but it's going to be an interesting one to watch next year.
A lot of storylines to keep an eye on when it comes to the technical alliances, some of the risers throughout the ranks, and which drivers will find their way to victory lane. The final weekend of NIS competition for the Gen 6 car comes to a close from Phoenix for RaceSpot's side of things. We'd like to thank you for tuning in for tonight's action here on RaceSpotTV for NIS Open competition for the season finale in the final full-length race weekend of the NIS schedule. For Renzo Bonder, for Tyler Maxson, I'm Justin Prince, saying so long, enjoy the rest of your evening. Congratulations to Jonathan Delaney, your winner from Phoenix.